Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have Heymun. Heymun is an artist out of Australia. She is a teenage engineering mentor, which is something I didn't know existed until now, until I first came across her work. She does really awesome music, lots of great sounds and textures, kind of ambient, but also that it still has like a song structure, and it covers a wide range of stuff. I'm really fascinated by all the work you're doing. I'm enjoying it very much, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it today on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I just came across your work not too long ago. I'm teaching a class for Berkeley Online on sampling, which seems to be something that plays a role in your kind of work. And one of my students in my class mentioned your work, told me I should check it out because they saw I had I had my OP1. It's just out of reach right here, but and they said I should check out your work, and I was immediately like sold. Like first video I came across was really really cool. So yeah, I'm excited to hear about how you do your thing and how you got to where you are these days.
Do you want to start from like the super beginning or just when the OP1 came into my life?
Well, I
'Cause-
noticed maybe we could because I noticed a lot of your earlier stuff. You're playing guitar and singing, so
yeah.
you've come like kind of along. It's a similar style, but I think you've come a long way in going from like acoustic guitar now to like modular and a very electronic. So yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so for me, like music, it started. I look at music in my life in two parts. Like when I first started with music, it was with the Yamaha acoustic guitar. So at that time, like I was working as a video editor, I studied film in university. I really wanted to get into music, but because I don't know any theory and it was just me loving to listen to music and just feeling a connection to it but never really made a move on it. So I thought the next best thing to making music was making music videos for musicians, so that way I could still be in that world and still feel that vibe and contribute to something I love so much. But as I was working, I finished my education, then I got a job in like I moved to Australia to do my university, got a job, and then it still didn't feel like I reached that happy place in my life. I still felt like, you know, why is it that I don't really know much about music, but I feel like I want a place in it, and I feel like I have a connection to it, and I feel sad when I'm so close yet so far because I was already editing music videos. I was shooting music videos, and one of those jobs was in Fox Studios in Australia. And I remember telling myself, like, just do your best as you can to contribute to music with the skills that you have. And once I reached that point, I was like, oh, this is not it, is it? Like, I just felt like walking around Fox Studios that night. I was like, oh, something's missing. What is this? And I remember like the coming days from that day, I walked home from work and I'd always visit this music store in Sydney, in the city. I'd always just go there and sit at the piano and just play something or just look at the guitars and just play a couple of things. And there was a sale for a Yamaha acoustic guitar. And I just thought, you know what, 99 bucks. I'm just going to get this and see where it goes. So I brought it back and I started Googling like C chord, G chord, D, E, everything. And then I started writing music in that first 2 weeks. And then I was hitting that high E string so hard, and I didn't know that it really stresses your pinky finger. And I went to the doctor, and he was like, what are you doing? What's wrong with your pinky finger? Right? He's like, you got to rest this thing. And but I was just so in it for the 2 weeks. I was already writing songs, I was singing, and I didn't want to stop. So when he was like, no more using this pinky finger for like a couple of weeks, so I just kind of went back to the store and started playing the piano instead. And again, start Googling like formations of what's a C chord and what's everything. And yeah, and then couple of months later, I just put some money together, brought it to a producer in Sydney and be like, "Hey, I have 5 songs. I want to make an EP. I'm not an official musician or whatever. I don't know. I'm just gonna play you the song. And I had this like diagram of like the keys I was pressing because I didn't even know. You know, it looks like Tetris to me, like the keyboard, like it's very confusing. So I'm like, so this is what I pressed, and and the producer's like, it's okay, I got it. Just play the song. I'll be able to know what chord it is. And we recorded the EP, and I submitted the song to our local radio, and it got airplay. And they said, "Hey, we want to talk to you." And I was like, "Okay." And from that airplay, I spoke to a label for the first time. And they were like, "We're not expecting you at all." Because from that song, it just seemed like you know what you're doing. And then when they saw me in person, they were like, "So how long have you been doing music?" I'm like, "Couple of months." "How long have you been playing the guitar?" "Couple of months." And then that song ended up winning a songwriting competition in Nashville. Then I went to New York to play the CBGB festival for the first time.
Ah, cool.
And it all just happened so quickly that it really shocked my system a lot, because people were saying like, "Hey, email us your writer. How many people are in your band?" And they kept referring to Heymun as a band. They thought it was a band of 5 people. So when I showed up, I just emailed some people in New York that I just again Googled. And there was this guy, Brian Carter, who played the drums and then who introduced me to some of his friends. It's like, "Yeah, you need musicians to play a gig? Sure." And I didn't even stop to question what I was doing. I just went, "All right, I need to do this. So this is what I need to do. Okay, I'm going to New York. So I guess I'm just going to Airbnb this." And, so there were so many things that I was just winging on the go that it ended up making me feel really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, I went to New York, I played my first show. Imagine just playing to your sofa for months and then just writing music, and then, being on radio for the first time, leaving the apartment. And most people in New York were like, "So, how many shows have you played in Australia?" I'm like, "Oh, this is literally my first show." How do you get out onto this stage? Most people go from the back. I think I climbed from the front. You know what I mean? Like, people had this like, "Oh, this is the green room where you rest." And I'm like, "What's a green room? It's not very green at all." And they're like, "No, you just hang out here and you hang with the band." I was literally just standing on the front, and they're like, "All right, hey, one's gonna play." "All right." And I just crawled up from the front of the stage. Yeah, a lot of things in hindsight made me think, okay, now what kind of musician do you want to be? Because I knew I loved music, and being able to, like, when I won that competition and I got radio airplay, it was kind of like this, I don't know, it made me feel like maybe I could have a place in music, even though I'm naturally not a very confident person. I remember even at that time, I was just very green and very naive. Like, if I don't know anything, I'll just Google it. And if I show up, I'm sure we can do this. I remember even the guy who was just like, there was feedback on the stage. I was just like, I don't know where it's coming from. It's coming from you. I'm so sorry. So there's so many things that in hindsight, if I was maybe doing a more, I don't know, would you say traditional or organic way of like being in a band in high school with your friends and going through all the kinks and, going through all the complications and stuff. For me, it was just, I picked up the guitar, wanted to write music, wrote music, then wanted to make it into an album, then wanted people to hear it. Just wanted feedback. Like, does anybody like this kind of style of music? And I was very into like very singer-songwriter music at the time. A lot of strumming, a lot of like auto harps, mandolins. I remember loving like, who was I listening to? Like Mumford and Sons, Noah and the Whale. Like I remember like very early days, I was very into this neo-folk kind of style of music. I really love when, what's the instrument that's not the accordion, but harmonium? And I was so interested in these acoustic instruments that you really had to master it to play. Because the thing with the guitar is like, I realized like, okay, you can strum this, but let's play it a bit nicer, pluck it a little bit nicer, keep plucking until your pinky finger is dying, like there's something really nice about, and I was listening to like the Beatles and yeah, just Bob Dylan, just Neil Young, just discovering music for the first time after work properly. I was like, I love the way that Bob Dylan sings and the way he expresses himself through music. So yeah, that was that phase. And then after doing a little bit of shows and coming back to Sydney, I was still getting offers like, hey, do you want to do a second album that's kind of the same vibe, but elevated and different? And I don't know why I was feeling unsure about that. My mind was thinking, I don't know if this is what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to try something different. I wanted to keep exploring. Like, I just didn't think that, even though some people are saying, I think you have potential in this kind of singer songwriter style of music, I think you can keep touring. My mind was like, what if I just said no to all of this and go back to the drawing board? And I remember some people were like, don't cut ties with this train that you're riding. Like, I think you can keep riding the singer songwriter train. And I think it's very stupid of you to just have momentum and just say, nope, not doing another show. Nope, not recording the same vibe and different, same, but different. I kind of want to just like tear everything down. And it really hurt me when there was someone really close to me who's just like, you'll never have this chance again if you walk away from this. Like, you're just ruining everything that you work so hard to build. Because it makes you doubt yourself, right? Like, it makes you doubt yourself, like, oh, but you want someone who's really close to you to say like, I think you got this. But I think at the time there were some people who believed that I had the instincts to try something new, but some were just like from industry experience. Or I even
Yeah.
met managers and producers. Like, it's very intimidating when people's been in the industry for many, many years and going like, it's going to be a mistake if you just say no more.
Well,
And
your story is insane in a
yeah.
cool way. Like, I mean, you went through like 10 years of like fumbling around, like you said, playing in the high school band, learning
Oh
every
no, I
little.
didn't do those.
No, but
Like,
you packed that
yeah.
into like months,
Oh,
and like it almost makes like it's a good maybe lesson to people that are getting into music. Like that's a good time to when you're cutting your teeth, when you're learning how to make mistakes and how to do things wrong and figure out what works. But for you to be just thrust into it like that is pretty wild. And those are opportunities that most musicians don't get in their whole career as musicians, where they get to travel all the way to New York in your case and play, and people want to record their albums. Usually it's hard enough
yeah.
for a musician to get someone to even listen to their song, let alone someone that wants to work with them. And I can understand people saying, like, because you've, in a way, it's like the musical equivalent of striking the lottery, all of that kind of success. And for you to have gotten it like that so quick, unusually quick, is I can understand people just based on what they've seen being like, well, the lightning doesn't strike twice, kind of thing. But I also see what you're saying too. Like, it's always nice to have someone say like, no, I trust you, I believe in you. But I'm sure a lot of that came out of just looking out for you, and maybe
Yeah.
they thought, having had that happen so fast, that maybe you didn't realize that how unusual and special it was. But who
Yeah.
knows? It's a wild story. I love it.
And the crazy thing, it's like it got picked up because I'm born and raised in Malaysia, and it got picked up by our national newspaper, the newspaper that my parents have delivered and read
Wow.
pretty much
Yeah.
since I was born, right? Like, since I was a kid. And so my dad like saw me on the newspaper. They wanted to interview me. They had a photo shoot, and to me, it just felt like boom. Like, I wrote a song and then I sent it to a competition in the States, and Cindy Lauper was a judge. And and they were like, and I went to Nashville and I met the people of the competition, and they were like, unanimously, like, that song was it. We love the vibe and the writing and stuff. And for me, from the outside looking in, my parents like couldn't be more proud. Like my dad, like he's such a huge fan of the Beatles. Like,
Mm.
he loves music so much, and he's like, none of our family are into music or anything, and it just suddenly happened that I guess even as a kid, I don't know if I even had any inkling to them that like, oh, music's her thing, because I was a little bit like, we're a family of, me, my older brother, my father, my mother, and I've always been a little bit of like black sheep, wallflower style in the family, where I felt like my brother was a star growing up. It's just like my dad just had like this like love eyes for my brother, like and all these things, and us as well, like me, my mom, my dad, and everybody, like we love my brother very much. But I was quite used to kind of being like, he was the one who took taekwondo, and then I'll just follow him to do taekwondo. If he wanted to do something like naturally, I'll just, hand me down clothes, ride the wave of the older brother.
Mm.
And with music, it really felt like it was really my own thing that they didn't know that I was pursuing on the down low when I moved to Australia. So when I let my mom listen to like that song that won the competition, like, here, mom, I just want you to listen to some music and tell me what you think. And she's like, oh, I love this song. Who is this? Is this an Australian singer that you met while you're living in Australia? And I was like, mom, that's me. And she's like, I didn't even know you sing like that. Because
Mm.
I just never, like I'm in the family, I guess I'm just very private and never really kind of like, if I'm happy or sad or if I want to do something, I've never kind of been like, hey everyone, this is what I want to do. I've just kind of been like, everyone's busy living their life. They're always busy pursuing something. So, I started to just pursue my own thing, that stuff. So when that came out on the newspaper, I could feel like my dad really responded to that. He's like, oh, I'm telling all my friends about you to read today's newspaper. And they had like so many copies. My mom would be like telling my uncle, don't you dare throw away today's newspaper because your niece is on it and we want to keep it. And all the magazines that I was on, like, my mom would get extra copies. So I understood like the side of them that, wow, we didn't know that you were doing all these things. Now that you're doing all these things, like, go and do it. So the minute when I was kind of like pulling back on the limelight stuff, I felt like I was doing it because I really wanted to see what my full purpose in music was, rather than continue to ride a wave that I felt almost foreign to. Like a lot of people said, sometimes being on stage, it just felt like their home.
Yeah.
Like I just feel so comfortable on stage. And I remember being on stage in New York for the first time. So the lights were so bright. And that's the first time I was on stage with in a different country with people, some I knew, some I didn't even know. And they were so close. And I was telling myself, like, there has to be a middle point in all of this where I'm understanding this process and and I know what I'm handling right now. Because at the moment, it just feels like I'm just strapped on and I'm just on this ride. And a lot of things I had to learn on the fly. And I wanted to be more comfortable in that moment rather than every time I was on it, I felt like a deer in headlights.
Mm.
And so after the last show, I was opening for like a pretty popular British artist. And that really hit me. Like after that show, I was just like, I need to find where I really thrive in music, because some things are feeling very foreign and not very comfortable. And where do I really want to be? So I kind of just, went back to Sydney, started to pick up Ableton, because I realized being even at recording studios, I know a lot of producers have a lot of experience. So they're like, we're going to use this mic, we're going to use this sound. And I remember feeling like if I do this on my own, like if I actually have time, like would this record come out differently? And would I feel like I've really maximized all of the bones in my body, all the muscles? Like, because I never feel like I'm utilizing 1000%. And I always feel like either I'm like a deer in the headlights or I'm just learning and listening at a studio, which was very good for me. But I reached a point where I needed all the noise to just stop. Like I really needed everything to just stop because I feel like I got my answer in a sense that if you want to do music, you can. Now how do you want to do this, right? So I decided that I want to produce. Like I really want to call the shots in every aspect of my album because I could feel resistance in my body if let's say a producer is just like, okay, that's a slow song, we're going to make it fast, and I'm like, I don't have the experience to say no. I'm a very respectful person. I want to keep quiet, you know. But but yeah, like I even felt like why am I having all these things? Most people might come into a studio and just be like, yeah, just whatever you feel, you know. But for me, it was just like, I want it to be a slow song, please. Can we keep it slow? That part, like I could feel like my opinions were trying to come out. I could feel like my hands were just like, no, let's try these. You know? So I just thought, well, if you have so many opinions and you feel so strongly, like go and learn Ableton and start to build from scratch. And you're gonna cut your teeth in, producing your album exactly the way you want to. And I realized like, gosh, I love answering all the questions. I love all this hair, like you want to just pull out your hair when things aren't working in your studio, right? Like I had to figure out how I want the studio to be set up. I had to figure out which audio interface I wanted, which speakers I wanted. And even though a lot of people were saying like, oh, it must be so nice to just fly to New York and just play a show and be a star on the stage and just rock out and stuff. And I was just like, no, man, I just loved going to a music store and just spending hours just figuring out which studio monitors I wanted, which synthesizer I really vibed with, like how many cables I'm going to actually tidy today. Like there was this feeling of I'm okay with being behind the scenes, and I'm okay just sitting at the desk and just making videos for people who love my stuff. And I love a little bit of privacy, and I love being a hermit. And it's those things I had to kind of admit to myself, like, like I am still that black sheep wallflower, even though I've grown up so much from that kid. But I'm very comfortable making a video, spending 12 hours straight here and not seeing sunlight. And it was those things that only that I went through it that I realized like this is my place in music. Like and I love it. It just makes me feel more me. And having to make an album from scratch and choosing which piano and just obsessing over those details, it really made me come alive in a way that I never felt before. So if I just kind of so that's why I could feel my instincts was telling me like you could just ride the wave and make another album and you might still end up here anyway. You might still end up at a place where you're just struggling even more riding that roller coaster rather than just going like time is of the essence. I'm feeling like I need to explore myself, and I'm sorry everybody, I'm so sorry. Like like I just yeah, and I thought that and for and many people didn't know, but after I kind of disappeared, I disappeared for 4 years. And that was when some people were just like, see, I told you, if you get off the train, it's just like you'll lose momentum and you'll never have it again. And at that time, I was very emotionally down. I think that person didn't know that they were kicking me at my worst. And it just kind of like, I was already struggling with like, I need to silence the noise because it's not good for me mentally, and it made me question like, how do musicians sustain themselves? Because I went from working in a job where I was getting paid and like to now feeling like a real starving musician where I was worrying about, and it was so crazy because I was stocking frozen food and I was rationing it at the time just to get by at that moment. And I remember that like chicken Kiev, that frozen one that I had that last piece in that thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do musicians do this? Like, this is so mentally unstable for me right now. It's like I'm trying to do my best work. And then I'm worried about my hunger and I'm worried about my mental health and my financial health, and I'm hemorrhaging money every step of the way. And you got to just keep up this shenanigans that all's good, like productive engine. Like it just, like, it just felt so unsustainable. It really did. And it really crushed me. I just felt like people need to know that hanging on to your day job is a good thing. Like being able to pay your bills, being able to eat well, being able to take care of yourself rather than just 24/7 just want to do music. Like it wasn't doing me any favors making music just my life and not having anything else out of that was just purely work, me just delivering work and having that space of missing music a little bit in the span and then really appreciating the hours that I was actually doing music. All those things were just hitting me on a rapid speed that it just, the momentum itself just knocked me really hard. As opposed to like, and I didn't have any friends who were musicians or anyone who's ever went through anything I was going through. All I could hear was people just go like, oh, whatever you get, you should just do it. Whatever you get, you should take it. Like whatever people tell you, you should follow it. And it just was really tough. So I kind of disappeared for 4 years. And people who really loved my music, there was just one or three people who would just email like, hey, Heymun, haven't heard from you since your last show. I don't know, is everything okay? And it would make me feel so bad because I was struggling so much and I never want to burden people. It just goes back to that black sheep wallflower where like, I just feel like my parents and my brother, like they have enough to deal with. Like, why would I even tell them about a bad day? Why would I even unload on people? Like, it's just, so people who love my music were the last place I would go to be like, oh yeah, sorry. Like, and I wouldn't say stuff like, yeah, an album's coming. And I didn't even know what was next for that, during that 4 years incubation. But during that 4 years, I just told myself like, I'm going to, learn how to use Ableton really well. I'm going to find out what it is, all these questions that I need answers to music. Like, let me just deep dive in myself. It's going to be really ugly. It's going to be really tough, but I just want to be honest with myself. Like, is there going to be any more pathway for me, or this is it? And that's when I just started getting into, I got an OP1 and boom, like things just started to, like a light just kind of, like it just started to open at the end of the tunnel after what seemed like 4 years of, I remember telling my partner, like, man, I got off the train and is this it? Like I never had any regrets, like getting off the train. I just didn't know when to get on another one. And I just didn't have the experience and I just didn't know what to do. And I remember like finally just kind of like boom, like I've never told anyone this before, but he's like, what's wrong? Like what's wrong? Like you just seem to get more quiet and more quiet. And, it's almost like people can't reach me when I'm truly, truly sad. Because I always have this facade where like, don't worry about me. Everything's fine. Like, how are you? And I never let people in too close. And with music, it was like, I got off the train. If I don't know what's next, it's just like, people are going to expect some answers. Like, I even my dad was just like, so, I mean, what do you want to do with your music next? And I was like, I'm figuring it out. Like, And there was a time where I just felt like there has to be a guidance for this, you know, there has to be somewhere I could turn to, but nobody in my life. Yeah, and I wasn't very not an open book kind of person back then. Now I try to be, because you don't know who you're helping if you're actually telling like your most lowest of lows. Like you don't know who's listening, because at that moment I was just looking for people who's been where I am. Like, because you always look at musicians like, oh, you must be born to make music. You this must be in your blood, because I'm not feeling that it's in my blood right now. But when they start to tell you, like, I had really low days and I couldn't get up, but this is how I got up, then people will kind of feel like it's a community and it's more realistic than somebody's born to make music. And I told myself after getting out of that rut, like, community is going to be part of my heart and soul of making music, because that was the reason why I was able to get back on a different train and starting to feel like that train's more me. And I didn't have to compromise how I felt, whether I was on stage or at a studio or something. It started to feel like there's not a lot of resistance. There's a lot more organic flow in what I'm doing today. So when I got out of that 4 year mess, it was because I got the OP1 and I started kind of experimenting and making videos on Instagram. And people were just responding to that. People were just kind of like, hey, what, like, this sounds amazing. I've had the OP1 for a couple of years. What you're doing is really cool. Like, I've not heard it in this way before. And things started to change for me when it caught the ears of teenage engineering. And, and I became a mentor, and it became more about community. And I could feel myself just heal, like just by meeting people who are as introverted as me, who are as hermit as me, who could identify with the love for gear and producing and synthesizers. Like, it just felt like a lot of things that I didn't understand. Like, why didn't I feel why did I feel out of place sometimes at a very prestigious studio? Like, I was recording in like nice studios and I felt very out of place. I felt like there were a lot of people there. And I realized, like, I do my best work like when I'm in a place where it feels like home. That's why my studio, like, if you look at it, it's not soundproofed. It's not professional looking. There's a carpet and a rug. Like, there's a rug here and there's clothes there. Like, I never want to forget that I was, a bedroom musician making music on my sofa bed. And no matter how things progress, like, I want things to always feel like that person. You know what I mean? And yeah, so that's where my mind is at after, getting into my other train in music.
That's a wild story. And I give you a lot of credit because it's pretty brave to get off that train. You've caught the train, the musical train that rarely comes through, and you could have been swept away into a style of musician and work that you were feeling was not true to who you were. And the reality is there's a lot of ways to do it. These days there's a lot of different, you could be just a singer and do studio work, or you could be a producer on your own, or even just nowadays, you can even be just kind of like an artist on Instagram doing little short pieces specifically tailored to that. There's so many options, and there's still so many more that are yet to be carved. You said you didn't really have anyone to turn to when you were going through this, but I think it's great that you're sharing your story, because I'm sure there are people that are going to benefit from that, knowing that there are other choices. And if something doesn't feel right, you shouldn't do it. Especially something like music that's like, it's precious to people. It's their art. It's how they heal. It's how they express themselves. You can very easily ruin it if you get on that wrong train, and then you don't even have that anymore. And for so many of us, it's the very thing that holds us together. that
Yeah.
expression. And if that gets taken away and ruined and it becomes too much of a job, like, then you need something else. And I think it's great that you were aware of that and you went for it and trusted yourself, and then you're also just letting people know that it's okay if you, because I related to it, especially when you called yourself a hermit. And when I was younger playing in bands, we did like some tours down the east coast of New York, of the United States, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great time, but after just 2 weeks of it, when we got back, I was glad to be home. And I kind of realized that we probably did 3 of those, I think. And I realized somewhere probably in the last one or two, like, this is fun for like a little vacation, but I could never imagine this being my life if that's just how I live. And there are people that love that and that's what they want to do.
Mm.
Let them do that. I mean, it would have been fighting for something that I think would have been really difficult to actually do and enjoy. So it's really great that you're able to trust yourself and see where you want to be. You had the vision, you're in the studio and you have all these people whose job it is to tell you speed up that song because it's going to come out better or it's going to be a more of a hit or whatever they think it is. And you still had it inside you like, nah, I kind of want to do this my way. So then there's, as you've found, there's certainly ways that can be done.
Yeah. I think was it okay that I drank water there?
Yeah, of
Is it
course.
okay?
I've been drinking water all time. Stay hydrated. This is a long show.
Yeah. I think what I realize now in hindsight is that if anyone who's listening, if you have this instinct and you feel like you're a little green, like I shouldn't have these opinions, I shouldn't feel this way. It's like I realized that that's the conflicting part in music production is that you question yourself like, did I earn my rights? Have I cut my teeth to be able to say that this song should be faster or slower? Like, do I know which microphone I want to be using? No, but in the end of the day, like when I speak to people on my Instagram who are telling me like, hey Heyman, I just and I get people sending me music all the time, like in progress. And and I ask myself, why is this happening? Why are people sending me music midway, right? It's because on my Insta stories, I'm always telling people like you have to trust your instincts, especially in the early days. Doesn't matter if you don't have a Billboard #1 song, you've never won a Grammy, you're not a Grammy award winning producer. It's like what matters is that when you have this inkling in your heart, like, I don't know if I like how that sounds, but someone very experienced is driving this ship. It's okay to let that ship be driven first, hear the product. Like I went through a lot of processes where I just sat with producers and I just go, I trust you 100%. If not, why am I paying for our time together? So there are many, if you listen to my Spotify, I've had like 2 releases, were done with 2 separate producers. And during that time, I'm like, this is my time to listen, learn, and take in everything that I can. Because after this, I think I'm going to be on my own. So I wasn't there like ready to kind of give my opinions. I was just there to learn everything I could from how they worked, from, the style of the studio, the lighting of the studio. I realized like my mind was just paying attention to everything. Like, why is the wood there? And when they were like, okay, we're going to put drums here, I'm just like, okay, I want to see how this story ends. Right. And when that album's finished, I just go, good, that's done. Now that we're doing something new, your turn to sit on the chair and make every decision. So I highly recommend if anyone's never been in a studio before, let that be your first experience because there's so much that I learned from one of the producers that I was with. And he's really popular with a lot of the bands here in Sydney. He ended up going to LA to produce more work. And I knew that if I ever get that 4 days with him, I'm just going to zip it and I'm just going to learn. And like, that's just what I did when he was like, hey man, you have to play this song from the start, like however many times. I'm just like, I'll do it. It's like, you have to sing this however many times. I'll do it. You got to do this at this time. I'll do it. Because I was also building the bone of just like, can I be somebody that goes into a studio and add value? What if I was a session musician one day, right? Like, what's my attitude going to be? So I was just taking notes like, okay, this is how people work. This is how session musicians come in. This is how you tune a drum kit. You can tune a drum kit. We spent 4 hours on this. So I was just learning, taking pictures, taking notes. And I just went, wow, that was so amazing to see how someone steers their ship. And even today, if I get to go to anyone's studio or any session, when people are mastering albums, I just like, can I just sit in and just keep quiet and just pay attention? I realize like there's that side of me because I want to be a better producer. I want to be better at working with people. And I'm still a hermit. So there's a lot of these things in my heart where like, if I get a chance to sit in with you, I'm just going to be there for you and I'm just going to make life easy for you. Like that was my mentality. Then when I got out, all those instincts just start to kick in. Like, okay, we're making an album. What is it going to sound like? How do you want to start? And that excitement just builds up because I've seen how people build albums, right? And I've seen how musicians come in and the demeanor and the vibes. I'm just like, that's good attitude. That's very helpful. I'm going to learn from this. And it made my transition to working on my own so much more exciting because I'm just like, this is going to be the lighting in my studio. This is going to be how I arrange things. It just gives you this sense of like, I've seen how people do it. And now I'm going to explore by myself how I'm going to do it, you know? And I wouldn't even, I think I think I would love to produce for other people. I think I would love to sit in on more sessions, get into more professional studios as well. Like, I think it's not like I'm completely like, okay, this is it and I don't want to expand. Like, but for me, while those options are not available because financially it's very expensive, a lot of people have told me like, I want to record my album, but it's so expensive. I need to work a job and save money. And I'm always like, try Ableton. I started with Audacity, like a free software. And I just did as much as I could with Audacity until I reached that pinnacle, then GarageBand, whatever I could get my hands on that's free, I'll just do it. And then I'll give people the same tips, like on Instagram, when they're like, hey, I want to do this in a financially stable way. How do I do it? I'm like, Audacity is your best friend right now. But if you feel like you need a producer, go get a producer. There's no one way, like you said, Brian, to do music today. I think in 2021, the most exciting thing is just like, there are many roads, as you said, that's not carved yet. And I want people to feel like there's no right or wrong. Because I was feeling like it was wrong of me to get off the train, you know? Like, because a lot of people like, that's what I want. I want to tour and I want to sing my songs to as many people as possible every week, all around the world. Like some people have told me, like, if I get the chance to just keep touring and not going home, I'd aim for that, right? And I was like you, Brian, I just felt like 2 weeks, 3 weeks into it, I was already like, I have all these new songs inside of me that I really want to write that I'm just letting pass. Like all these feelings that were very fresh and ideas that were coming because I was just tired, malnourished, dehydrated, hungry, overworked, underslept. And I was traveling so much between like Malaysia, Australia, and America that I was just falling under the weather at every stop. And when I went to New York, right, I went to a Duane Reade because I wasn't feeling well. And I got this over the counter, like, you know, you have the shelves. And I just picked out I don't know what it is, but in Australia, it's like a Lemsip where there's paracetamol and it's lemon flavored and it's very mild. Like in Australia, you could just pick it off the shelf and drink it and I feel better. So I picked it off the shelf because it looks similar. And when I got to the checking counter, the lady said, I need your ID for this. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, America. I mean, I didn't know why it's something off the shelf because in Australia, like anything that's on the shelf, like you're not ID'd or you need a prescription. So I gave my ID and then I drank it. And now I know why you need your ID because, Brian, I fell asleep for 12 hours. Like after I drank that, I did not wake up for like 12 hours. I remember drinking it at 8 p.m. Like I did my sound check and everything. 8 p.m. I drank it. I woke up at like 9 p.m. So I looked at the clock and I was just like, oh, I slept for an hour. I feel like I slept more than an hour though. The power nap's so good, huh? And my friend who came in to check on me was just like, "What's wrong with you? Answer your phone. You're in New York alone for the first time. What the hell? It's been a day." And I was just like, "What do you mean?" It's like it's
Mm.
9 p.m. Wait, 24. Like it's been 9 p.m. the next day that I woke up and I missed like whatever it is that I was supposed to show up for like the day of, because I thought it was so normal to just fly from Malaysia to Sydney and then to New York and then just sound check on the same evening. Like it was so unrealistic. I didn't have a tour manager. I didn't have anyone, just my friend, my good friend, my best friend at the time. She just followed me and she's like, yo, this is a bit crazy, man. Like the schedule of us landing, going straight into our Airbnb and then getting into a cab to the venue. And my face was like on the cab, the back seat, because the jet lag just hit me a little hard. And I just did this on the taxi, and the police stopped that taxi.
Really?
And the guy was just like,
Whoa.
"You really need to not put your head at the back of my taxi because," and the police was like, "Ma'am, are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just really sleepy right now." So a lot of things hit me at the same time. It's just like I was sitting on the back seat. I got stopped by police for the first time. I went to Dwayne Reed. I had some medicine and then I woke up 12 hours, like a few hours later. It was the next day, 9 p.m. My phone was blowing up and I still had so many things I had to do. And I remember getting on stage and I could still feel the medicine like in my body. I'm just like, what? The medicine's really strong in America. I was like, what? And my friend, like, and I even saw these things in Dwayne Reed where you could just drop something onto your shower and it would just steam up your whole shower. Apparently, like it's really good for you. And I've never had that before. So I was just like picking out stuff that as I would in Australia that I thought it's just gonna help me get over feeling like a cold, and that
Right.
whole shower over steamed up. And I was just like, help! Like, just like, this won't stop going. Like, the little tablet just won't. So, just thinking of how green I was and how willingly I was to say yes. Like, you're going to New York? Yes. And you're going to Nashville. We even packed in a Nashville trip in the middle to go see the people who gave me that award for that singer songwriter competition. And I was literally medicated in the car, literally. And the person was just like, oh my gosh, like, you've been traveling so much. You must be a bit under the weather. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm feeling great. Like, I'm on top of the world. Again, crashed out in Nashville, even though I wanted to check out that boulevard where there were a lot of music and stuff. I was like,
Mm.
tonight I'm gonna go out in Nashville and I'm just gonna live it up. Nope, Brian, I just
Yeah.
crashed into my flight the next day. So yeah, like when I was looking at that, a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, that's what I would love." Like I would love to just be on the road, but they didn't see that like I was falling under the weather. I was always looking at my bank account, like how am I gonna eat? Like, I'm fulfilling all these things, but a lot of it comes out of your own pocket as well. Like, sure, they will, like, some things are provided for, but essentially, it's like a lot of people don't know the cost that goes into touring and how badly I was eating during that time. And a big part of my brain was like, if I ever get back into music, the number one thing I wanted to make sure that I contributed into the scene was a sense of realism of
Mm.
not just the glamour of things. Because a lot of people that I haven't spoken to for a while who saw me on the newspaper were like, oh, you're living the life. Oh, you got into a helicopter in New York. And like, so a lot of times they were saying things that from the outside, it's always going to look social media good because you're
Right.
posting your highlights, but they don't see you when you're literally like fighting for your life, when you're like so exhausted, so dehydrated. You still have gigs to play and you need to play it at 100%, because that's what you're there for. Your voice is supposed to be like projecting as beautiful as ever. And you're supposed to be like, this is the moment, your energy's up. But people don't know when you're running on that adrenaline so high for that short period of time, it does something to your mind and your body. It's kind of like exercise. You can't go straight into like a pull up. You need to kind of do a little bit of like, you know, get this strong first before you break yourself, right? So I realized that I was being thrown too fast, too soon. And if I keep riding this, it's going to hurt me because I remember there were some nights that like I was just too tired to even call my partner and tell him that I was too tired. I was just at this point where I'm just like, oh, if somebody doesn't talk to me for 24 hours, like if my phone doesn't ring for 24 hours, like if I don't have to answer a billion questions because it all falls on my shoulders, like I'm not a band, I was solo rider, cost, flight tickets, when are you landing? My friend who was with me, she needs to eat. You know, it's like I need to take care of her. What are we doing tomorrow? Safety. It was just us two girls going to New York for the first time, right? So many things really felt like I had to have the answers very quickly, even though I didn't have it. So you ask me a question, I'd be Googling. You ask me a question, I'd be answering. You ask me a question, I'd be eating. Like, so I just felt like, you know, people need to also know what it takes to keep that going. It's on the outside, it may look like things are going. It's because I'm like a duck, you know, like on the outside, it's just like, yay, coming for your show. All good. See you soon, New York. But down there, I was just like, my legs are breaking. I just need 5 minutes. You know, like I just need to run down this street and eat my freaking food. There's no eating a pretzel in Central Park, man. It's just like, okay, Central Park, I only have like 20 minutes to see the whole thing run. And I was just
There
like,
it
I
is.
would run, you know, and
Yeah.
it's huge, right? So I was just like, I want to see Central Park as much as I can because I don't have time in this. I was there for like 10 days and I wanted my best friend to see stuff to be like, go open your eyes. You know, it's just like, so, and I was doing my social media at the time. You know, I was also doing the interviews for the magazines and
Yeah.
I was taking my own pictures. So that felt like there was not a single second that I wasn't managing my entire career and then making the music and answering questions I didn't have answers to while falling under the weather almost at every city.
You're doing the
So when people,
jobs of a whole team of people.
yeah, and also when people call like my phone, they thought it would be like a manager. Like even magazines are like, oh, you know, we're just gonna schedule a time. And I was just like, yeah, it's me. Really? Why would you just answer the phone on like by yourself? Like, and why would you just send an email back in the first 5 minutes? Like usually artists, it'll take some time. And I'm like, yeah, because if I don't do it now, like the week will pass and I won't have time to do it. Like that's the thing in my mind. Like if I keep letting things stack up, then my stress gets even higher. I just needed to clear everything and strike while the iron was hot. So when I was kind of burnt out, it was really, really burnt out. And that 4 years, you almost have this kind of like nightmarish moment sometimes where you're asleep and you're like, you know, did I do everything I could have done? Like, I had to get off the train, but could I have been stronger? Could I have been more of an octopus than I already was? Did I let people down? Were they expecting more of me when they didn't even see the bigger picture of everything? Because I wasn't going to be like, oh, this is so hard. I have never been that person. Like, no matter what, if my mom and dad is just like, how are you today? I'm like, I'm good. You gave me life. You gave me education. You've done your part.
Mm.
Everything else, I need to figure it out. Like, leaning on people just wasn't my style of doing things. But coming into like being a mentor, you know, like for teenage engineering, it's like the empathy has to be there. The love has to be there. The understanding has to be there. Like we're not robots. We're people. And like as musicians, we're very sensitive. And not all of us are very good at business, marketing, staying afloat, you know? It's like that side of me just started to understand like being thrown into it so quickly. You just want people to know that it's okay. It's all right. Like there are days where you feel like you've lost some opportunities that in the long run is good for you or in the long run wasn't good for you to lose it, but it's okay to choose your mental health when you need to and don't feel guilty about it. Even if you feel like you're disappointing people who expected more of you, you know, sometimes you just got to let it go. And I think that was the hardest thing for me, which was to maybe seem weak or to seem like I didn't have my things together, like I always feel like from the outside in, I don't want people to worry about me. So I always try to like do as much as I can do, stay out of trouble, obviously make my parents proud and stuff. But I was always realizing that, do musicians put themselves last? Do we put our happiness and our mental health last just to fulfill this ideology of what we should be? Because that's so unhealthy in the long run. Like, we're the vessel that the music has to come out from. We're the people who have to feel 100% when we're performing. But it's the music industry can ask so much of us today. Like, we handle our social media, we film our own videos. You're doing podcasts and you have to do the logistics of everything, making sure that everybody's filling the calendar and everyone's showing up. It's like the work that goes into it, it's very independent. Like we carry a lot on our backs, and I think community was my answer to show a lot more empathy. Like when people came to me and be like, I'm having a bad day, I haven't been making music for 2 weeks. And instead of being the person that other people were for me, who's just like, you should have done better, this will never happen for you again, like instilling more fear in me at the time that I was already burnt out, like I was already at the lowest of the low, when that person was just like, you'll never have this again, you'll never be on top again. Like, that person didn't even know how far they kicked me into a very sad state. So when people come to me and they're like, I'm really stuck, I always go, rest. It's not the last day you're going to be making music. This is not the end. Like, you have to believe that your chapter is in your hands. Like, it will start when you start writing again. And if you don't feel like writing, the book's not closed and tossed away. And if that book doesn't look the way that someone else wants you to look, where an artist needs to win a Grammy, an artist needs to be rich, or you need to be able to fund that very glamorous lifestyle that you want, I'm like, really ask yourself what kind of musician you want to be and what's going to make you happy. And I realized for me, as long as I have my health, my mental health, and I'm able to create the things that make me come alive, even if there's no audience for it. I never thought my OP1 stuff had an audience for it. I didn't know if my Eurorack that's missing a couple of modules would have anyone be into it. But me feeling so alive when I go to territories that I've never crossed before and doing things that I've never done before, I'm like, yeah, if the world ended for me today, it's just like good memories, good memories. Like, I was really true to myself as an artist. And what more could I want? Because I could have just done what someone else's ideal of me was. But was I genuinely happy? Unfortunately, I wasn't. I was just burning my candles at all ends, feeling more lost than ever. And if I ever was to go back to touring, performing, and doing those things, I wanted to have more knowledge behind my back than just trusting that someone said, just do it, you'll be fine. And I literally went there like, I'm not feeling very fine, y'all. The stage sounds really strange. Like, oh, that's feedback. Okay, cool. Like, everything I was doing for that 4 years was just preparing for me for any more opportunities that I was going to get, and saying yes to the right things that felt very true to me.
It's really great advice, because to make it in music, there is definitely an element of hustle. You have to be a hard worker, because there's so many people that want to do it too. But it's very easy to cross that line where you're doing yourself harm. And I'm happy to hear you bring that up. I feel like I'm hearing more of this lately, the last few years, of people are talking a little more about this idea of taking care of yourself. And because the hustle is I think that's been really big the last few years. The internet has built that up. Social media has built it up. Well, you got to be hustling. What are you doing today? You need to have all this going on, but not at the sake of your well-being. And it's nice to hear people talking about the reality of it and what it actually does to you, because in the end, it defeats the purpose of everything you're trying to do, because you're not going to be able to do it if you can't take care of yourself first. And even the point you make about like keeping your day job and having a little time away from making music so that you're kind of hungry for it again, that can be really valuable. And I think sometimes it even makes you work harder when you do have the time. You value that time more than you would if you had just a clear calendar. But it's important to do what feels right to you, and I think ultimately the music and the art will benefit. But to wear ourselves to the bone, that's not fun. That's not the dream anyone has. You don't want to be on your yacht and sick to death. So you'd be much happier just being in your basement studio feeling good about what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think like the hustle that I'm doing right now, like it felt more productive than the hustle I was doing when I was on someone else's time and someone else's schedule.
Hmm.
Like when I came back after that 4 years, I just set myself like hustle's a given, not at the cost of your mental state, but it's time to build very disciplined muscles. Like from the way I clean my studio to the way I take care of my gear, like there had to be a whole new mindset to hustle rather than just at all cost,
Hmm.
because YouTube was having this trend where, like from all these videos where people were just churning out content almost like see you tomorrow, see you tomorrow, see you
Right.
tomorrow. And then later you would hear the content creator going like,
Need a
I'm tired.
break.
And that's so
Yeah.
natural. That's so natural, right? And it's good for content creators who are at a very high following, anyone who has a following, to bring the humanness of creating content back to people, because I don't want to make my community feel like, oh, to be a mentor you literally need to have zero life, like you need to have be like working so crazy. Like I always, like sometimes on Sundays on my Insta stories, I'll just tell them like, it's Sunday, we're gonna make soup today, and we're just gonna relax today. We're just gonna listen to the sounds of dishes washing, and here's the fruits that's in season. Because I don't want to give them this highlight reel where I'm just always like highlights working with brands and stuff. I want it to make them realize that we rest together, we hustle together, but we rest together.
Hmm.
Like there has to be almost this balance where you got to normalize content that's not 1000% hustle. Because then every time someone looks at my stories, they're just going to go like, she's working, I'm not. Because I started getting messages where like, are you ever out of the studio?
Hmm.
Yes. What do you do outside the studio? I take walks. I take care of myself. I make soup. I eat. If I'm tired, I'm not in here at all. If I'm not posting, I'm not in here at all. Because I want to just let them know that, like, let's keep this very human always.
Hmm.
Because it's so easy to get lost in, like, if I want to be like you, then I just have to live like you. Then I have to do as you do. Because I remember being at the very early stages of coming to music, I was seeing bands just kill it. Like, yes, this is my life. And going on to the next city. And I just felt like, wow, I couldn't feel more isolated from a community that I want to feel more close to. Because I didn't realize that. But there are different kinds of community. There's the hermit introvert community. There's the
Hmm.
content creating community. There's the Instagram community. There's even the TikTok community for music. There's the tutorial community, So at that time, I just thought, what is a musician now in year 2000? Like the landscape is getting harder and harder to nail. Like it's harder to actually be in the top 100s. It's so hard to actually get radio airplay. It just seems like artists with labels get a lot of that marketing support, and independent artists just needs to figure it out. So I just told myself, like, if any opportunity I have to like be on a podcast or speak to someone directly on my Instagram, I just want them to know, like, we're in this together. A lot of things are still being figured out, but are you happy? Are you healthy? Because that is the most important thing. And like you said, I notice a lot of content is focusing on mental health these days because it's reached that bubble where,
Yeah.
like, when a person feels so exhausted, they could do more damage, right? Like, you can feel so lost to the point where I don't even want to pick up my camera. I don't want to pick up my phone. I don't want to do music. And what good does that do in the end? It just kind of sets you back. So now I'm just telling myself, like, just build a good discipline, get back on the horse after you rest, but also know when your breaking point is. I remember doing this job recently because now I'm getting more composing jobs, and I want to cut my teeth. I want to prove to like these clients that like you get things in the deadline that you want, and you'll get it in high quality. And I remember like when I'm adjusting like expectations, reality, timeline, and stuff, I remember feeling like I would sit on this desk for 12 hours straight, eat my lunch at that corner, and then feel my eyeballs just popping out. And I'm just like, okay, 12-hour mark, eyeballs gonna pop out. We're not doing this again. Like we're gonna do the break has to be you're away from the desk and you're gonna eat outside the studio. Like it's these things that we don't pay attention to that becomes really bad habits. And then suddenly our hustle looks like we're just attached to the table and our phones
Mm.
24/7. So just having this mindfulness for myself where like it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be nervous. It's okay. You don't have to hustle to the point that your eyeballs are going to pop. Like you're still going to deliver at the time that you need to deliver. Like calm down, step away from the table, go drink water somewhere else, you know?
Hmm.
Because I don't want to build bad habits when I'm working for myself. Try to
Well,
be mindful.
you'd be working so hard to attain something, to achieve something that you won't be able to actually enjoy and do. I've felt this a
Mm,
lot myself where, I want to be working, want to be productive and doing as much as I can. And then like if I'm tired, I'll be on the couch, put on Netflix or something and be guilty the whole time that I'm
mm,
not doing anything and just thinking about it. I shouldn't really be doing. I got to get up. And now here I am. I'm not being productive and I'm not even relaxing anymore. I'm not even doing
yes.
that. So it's like now I'm really wasting time.
Yeah.
I've been able to kind of tell myself like, okay, I'm going to sit on the couch maybe for the whole rest of the night. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's
Yeah.
it. It's okay.
Enjoy
And
it.
just
Yeah.
accept it. And it makes coming back to work so much better too. I'm
Yes.
so much more refreshed because a lot of times I'd be relaxing, but feeling guilty the whole time. And I come back and I don't want to do anything because I didn't get that
Yeah.
refresh. It's still swirling in my head. It's still torturing me. And I think a lot of people deal with that. A point I didn't really consider was when when we do scroll on our social medias, we are just seeing those highlights, right? And we
Yeah.
assume that that's just how everyone's life always is. So you see the people that are working hard and putting stuff out, and you think like, oh, they're probably doing it right now. They're probably doing it right now. But I bet a big secret to that kind of work is the deliberate stopping of work. You can't. It's not like you punch in and punch out with this kind of stuff. You're not working 9 to 5 and then you go home and it's
Yeah.
over and you don't have to think about it till 9 in the next morning.
Mm.
You could literally do it all day and all night. So
Yeah.
that makes it hard to draw the line. And I think it's important to deliberately draw the line. All right, we're done.
Mm.
This is it. That was good. We did what we needed to do. The
Yes. You
end.
know this saying, like, I'm from art school, and I remember the first time that I saw a canvas and I was all painting. And I remember not wanting to mess with the canvas for the first time. And my art teacher was like, why are you so hesitant to put any paint? I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to like ruin this canvas. I want to have a clear idea of what I'm doing before I tap into it. And my art teacher was so wonderful. He was like, you'll never have a clear idea of what you're going to be doing. Start with one stroke and then just continue from there. So, just me just starting with a stroke. And then suddenly I didn't know where it was going. And my teacher came back and he's like, what's the problem? Because I started to pause. And I was like, I I don't know, like, should I keep going or should I stop or should I keep adding things or should I go a different direction? And he was like, A real good artist always knows when to stop. That's the secret. Like before this painting gets murkied into, usually like the colors all just, it's too much. Like there's a sweet spot of like where the canvas just goes like that's enough colors before they start to mush. And he was like, knowing when to stop is what you need to work on. Every artist needs to work on that, right? So when we're making an album, when we're making a song, there's always going to be better. There's always going to be, I can play that guitar part better. I can go and dig up more synth pads and make it sound better, or I could restructure it or retime the whole tempo and restart again. But to what end, right? Like, so the instincts that I think is so important, I realize when we're working alone is, like you said, like you got to have a deliberate intention of when you're going to stop, and when you clock out, you're going to enjoy clocking out. Because I have that guilt too. If I'm watching too much Netflix, and like my partner has to literally tell me, he has to be like, babe, you got to sit down. It's a Sunday and you need to not do anything but enjoy this episode of whatever you're watching. And I'd sit there being really restless, like, but I might forget at what point I left that track. And I don't want to let this feeling disappear because I'm in the zone, I'm in the vibe. He's like, yeah, but your eyes could barely open and your body is like slouched. He's like, I can tell you're tired. And I just end up like knocking out like a power nap, right? And I just feel really good. Like if I allow myself to just switch off my brain. I'm sure, Brian, you had this saying in your head at least once or twice. All musicians, like, if I could switch off my brain, I'd love to. If I could just go like, whoop, sleep mode, and I'm not feeling guilty. I'm not feeling pressed for time. I'm not feeling like I'm wasting away, squandering my opportunities or not hitting while the iron's hot. We're always going to feel this guilt. So I love that you said, like, we need to be deliberately loving ourselves and saying, like, stop. Like,
Yeah.
enjoy this podcast and just not think, you know?
It's something I love about doing the podcast. The phone is off to the side, and
Yes.
and we're just
Yes.
going to talk for a while, and there's just no interruptions. And if I find that I get into these interesting places, I really didn't know we were going to get into all this stuff when we were sitting down. But it's pretty cool when you can let go of that stuff and just be with what you're doing. Whether
Be
it's
present. Yeah.
working on the music or not working on the music, or taking that walk or eating your soup, whatever it is you're doing, just do it. Do that. And it's so easy to get lost in thought, and that never stops. I think it takes a very deliberate, like, thinking. It's an action to stop it. When you
Yes.
talk about finishing art, it kind of brings me to something I was kind of interested to talk to you about with your music, because a lot of your music has a lot of space to it and a lot of openness. And what I appreciate about it is it really allows you to, like, hear the sounds and hear the details and really, like, hear the reverb tail in your voice trail off, instead of having, like, something else pop in, which is always the temptation. We can keep adding and adding and adding forever. Do I have a question? I'm not sure what my question is here, but I just think you have a really nice knack for kind of knowing where to leave things, when to let things breathe, because then there's also that kind of balance where it could get boring if nothing's happening. And I think when we're making the music ourselves, we kind of know all the surprises that are coming. We know what's next. So I think we get bored early, maybe. So that is sort of what gives us the impulse to want to add things constantly. We're not hearing it for the first time. We know what it's going to happen. I guess I'm kind of curious, like, if you have any method, or how do you approach that so that you still can maintain the excitement of the music and the interest, but without kind of like painting over your colors, if so to speak.
I think for me, because like when I started with Ableton, I told myself like I'm actually going to freely express myself on this canvas, and I want to sharpen my instincts because like I came from a background of filmmaking, and very early in film school you'll be shooting and editing your own stuff. And I remember like out of my classroom, like my lectures will always be like, my editing was very tight. Like what it meant was like, I knew when to change scenes, I knew when to introduce things, right? And I realized like that was something inside me that I loved, that I knew when to like, and because I've watched so many movies growing up and I've listened to a lot of soundtracks, like you kind of build an instinct of like, okay, at this time slot, like things should happen at this point. And during that time that I was doing Ableton, I was always kind of I'm looking at my Ableton now, like you look at that scene and you have this like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute, right? And I was writing songs on my voice memo at the beginning stages. And I could tell like I already had this sense of like the editor in me that I brought into music. Like at a certain point, like even if I'm not looking at the timeline, I could see where I wanted to shift things, like verse, verse, chorus, or verse, interlude, chorus. Like there's always this part of me that learn the structure and then make it your own. Like if you feel like traditionally when I was writing my singer-songwriter music, I remember like one verse, a second verse that sounded different from the first verse, and then a chorus, a repetition of the first verse, second verse, then I go chorus, then instrumental, chorus again, the end. And then when I started making my own album, I'm just like, nah, I want none of that. Like I could feel inside of me that like this is going to be different. I want to take my audience on a very different sensory journey. And whatever I'm feeling, I'm not going to look at the timeline. I'm just going to let my instincts tell me when things have to shift. So I just have this habit where like quite doorless on this side and my door is on this side. And I'll just play. And then just go, okay, something wants to happen here. I'm just going to play that. And that whole album, Hymn, like that I released, I never even planned the duration of any song. I didn't plan the structure of any song. And the way it came out, I was quite surprised when people felt that there was space and there were things happening and it was happening at a time that it should happen. And I always thought, wouldn't that come from me being meticulous about things? Then people will be taken on a journey, because that's the editing world. Like the minute you hit a trailer for 60 seconds, you know you have limited time to get someone's attention, right? With an album, it's so easy for things to be boring. It's so easy to lose your audience in the first track, right? So I realized that if there are people who really like my stuff, I need to be confident and be okay with the uncomfortable silences that I feel deserve to be in there. If not, I would just be entertaining them, but I will not be actually giving them all these little nuances, the awkwardness, the quietness, the subtleties. And then they'll start thinking of music in a different way. Like, oh, I didn't know I could react to music like this. And I didn't know I could free my mind listening to something like this. Like the feedback that I got from that album was people just go like, you know, when I'm feeling like I need to refresh myself and I feel like I need to jump into the water and take a swim and release my soul, I just listen to track 2 and I just go, that's nice. That's nice that it's not like a roller coaster that they know they're going to have like verse, chorus. It's just like, I don't know where it's going to go. And wherever Heymun's going to take me in this album, I don't know. When I was listening back to the full album, because I wasn't so overly intentional and meticulous with this thing happens, sometimes I listen to it and be like, huh, I was really sad, on that song. And like, wow. And because you evolve as a musician and a producer, so things that you used to do back then, you probably won't do now. So when I look back at the album, I just go, I was very comfortable with being uncomfortable sometimes. Like, because there were synths that just go like in there that were like really strong. And then people came back to me and just said, wow, that sounded like a whale noise underwater. How did you do that? I'm like, oh, it's the grandmother Moog. So things that I just thought like, should I leave it in there? Because it could be quite like, it could take them away for a millisecond, like, it just came out. And I just went, yeah, my instincts say yes. And my music journey is always going to be about following my instincts and seeing where that takes me rather than making an album that's going to be a hit. You know what I mean? Like, because if I had that mentality, I think I'm going to, I don't know, I think I might hurt myself if I had this mentality where like, I'm going to make a hit song or this album's going to be it. Like, my personality type's just like, let's not box ourselves and like this is what it has to be. Like let's just put it out there and whatever it becomes, you know? So yeah, like that's how I approach songwriting for that album. And in the other albums, the beginning part it was more structured. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like another good reason to getting off that original train you were on. Because if you wanted to do that structured kind of tried and true path, it sounds like you could have been on that ride. And this allows you to have that freedom to go with your gut, go with how you want it to.
Yeah, because there was a producer who, like, while I was making the album, I was already writing other songs. And there was somebody in that group that was just like, I think I heard, I think they're trying to be really nice. It's like, I don't, I like think you're crazy. And I was just like, really? For exploring? Yeah, I mean, you do this one thing so well. Like, why do you want to ruin it? Like, why do you want to just get out of it? Like, I was like, I don't think I'm intentionally getting out of writing singer songwriter stuff. I just feel like I haven't explored the spectrum of my feelings yet. And I don't think my feelings can just be expressed on the acoustic guitar in this structure. I feel like I want to touch other gear and I feel like I'm not done exploring things. Like I don't think this is how I'm going to say things always. And they were like, you're wrong, like you're a bit crazy. And I remember like, well, I'm saying all these things that I just wonder if like these people would hear it and just go like, "Oh, I know you're talking about me." I'm not trying to put anyone on blast or on the spot,
Well,
but
no, I think that's their job to see those things that are going to work in that world, and you just were not interested in being there. So I don't think there's any
yeah,
there. I mean, there is a real like to be in like say you're writing like a pop song. There's like certain things you just have to do a certain way. There's just kind of rules, and of course they get broken once in a while, and like people do new things, but there is a bit of a formula to it. And if you had that going, you had it figured out or whatever, they probably just wanted to encourage it. And I understand that. I think it's just a different type of music. It's a different job. It's a different world.
and and the thing that I love so much, I realize about like the synth community and teenage engineering, it's like they've always encouraged me to explore the deepest of depths. Like they're just like, go for it. Like the more I explore, the more I feel like people just genuinely respond to that. And that's why I want people to know, like, I know sometimes it sounds like the stuff that you're doing is so niche and no one's gonna like it. It's better to just, you know, do something that you feel is gonna be more accepted first, and then you slowly kind of like bottleneck it into a niche point. But I've always been like, nah, man, fly your like flag however you want and do it as soon as you feel it, because the people who are gonna love you are genuinely going to be so grateful that you're doing things your way. So you're showing people that like there's a market for the niche stuff that you're doing, and I want to see more markets for the niche stuff that everyone else is doing, whether it's like tape ambient looping or if it's like you know shredding the guitar in the most awesome way. I'm noticing pockets of communities that's celebrating the nicheness and how deep they want to dive, rather than what I felt I was experiencing on the outside of the online community when I was facing people that were working like maybe as managers or whatever. So far, my personal experience, which was very limited, I can't speak for all producers or all managers, just the ones that I've met. It felt like the minute you have something going on, they just kind of want to like, zoom, like do not move from this, and you're going to be this, then you're going to be marketed as this, and we're going to hit this a billion times so hard until people understand that you're this. And yeah, so that made me feel like look, there's so many different ways of being successful in music, but you have to define success of music in yourself first before you go out there or you go online.
Mm.
Like we have to be very resolute with how much am I willing to sacrifice for my music. Do you know what I mean? And at the beginning, I was ready to sacrifice my mental health, my physical health, my finances. Like there was no price to me feeling I was doing something I wanted to do. Like I was just like, if I have to pay for this ticket, I'll pay for this ticket. If I have to buy this gear, I'll buy this gear. And if I have to starve, I have to starve, you know? And then at this stage, that's why at the beginning, when you asked me like, okay, the start of music, I was just like, which part? Like the
Mm.
first one where I kind of like went on this roller coaster ride, or the second phase now that, you know, I'm more in control. Because when I look at the past and me now, there's like two starts to my music. It started and I felt like it died. And then now something new has started and it's my responsibility to carry forward in a way that I guess I also want people to know, do it in a way that's sustainable for you no matter what. Like that sustainability is very high on my list. Because if I cannot afford a gear, like I'm not gonna buy it. If I'm gonna starve over being able to eat well and sleep well, I'm not gonna trade it, because I know in the long run I'm gonna go back to a place that I was where I stopped for 4 years because
Mm.
I over blew myself into a billion pieces. You know. So right now I just know that sustainability is number one with making music. Like, is this roof intact? Am I full? You know, and my dad, when I was growing up, the attitude in the house was whenever, like, let's say I was like crying or upset, right? And being a kid, you know, just having these days where just like, ooh, I'm not feeling good today. And would I be like, you got food in your stomach? Yep. Got a roof over your head? Yep. You're good. And I'm like, I'm good. So I think that mentality, it just, the whole music thing and being successful in music thing, it could really lead people astray. It could really come at a cost that like you end up having to clean up the mess and heal yourself years later. Like even like now I'm in a much better place, right? Like in music where I know that when I'm resting, it's not the end. Like I'm always going to make something else. But back then in that 4 years where I was releasing music in pseudonyms and I was testing out SoundCloud. I think I had two separate bands that I was incognito. I didn't want to use the name Heymun anymore to make music. Like, you know, I could feel like the fuel that I was using to push forward wasn't from a sustainable source. So I was always depleted. Like I
Mm.
wasn't resolute. I didn't have the whole picture of like how much you're willing to sacrifice. Who are you? What do you want to do? What's the purpose? For me, it was just like I was still at the end of the train grabbing on. Even though I got off it, I just felt like I was being dragged by it a little bit. But but after I got out of the 4 years, I just felt like let that be a lesson to me. And if anybody ever felt the same, you know, don't be so reserved that you just can't say like, I really stacked it, man. Like, you know, like it's okay to be like, I tried my best, but it really tore me up. You know,
Mm.
I had to find myself again because I think those things were the things that I was so afraid to say because I never want people to worry about me like, oh shit, like things were really dark for you.
I'm happy that you're able to. I mean, for one, I'm happy that you were able to figure this all out, but I'm happy that you're able to share it too. I mean, for me, it's even helpful to just to hear some of this stuff. This idea of just like kind of knowing where you want to be, because I've definitely found
Mm.
myself doing certain work that, like
Yeah.
product reviews, say, which
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's awesome. Like, wow, this company sent me this product and I can keep it and they're going to pay me to make a video on it. But
Yeah.
it's not very fulfilling, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
so like it was really like flattering and cool and exciting. And, you know, I've got like this like headphone amp I'm using with my band whenever we
Mhm.
record, and I tell them, yeah, they sent me this for free. And they're like, wow.
Yeah.
But like, when I had to make that video, like I thought about it for like a week. Just like, "Ah, I gotta do this thing. I don't want to do
Mm,
it. I
yeah.
barely have any time to do anything as it is. And so it's easy to like say yes to that stuff, but at the same time, it forced me to say no to so many other things that I would have
Mm,
gotten more out of.
that's so true.
And maybe like you were saying no to your health, no to your well-being and all of that.
Yeah, because I think the shift is now people are more mentally health conscious because that's the source of our productivity and that's the fuel that's gonna keep pushing us forward. If that source is shaky or unstable,
Hmm.
we're gonna feel very conflicted as we do things. Because I realize, like, doing that whole touring thing and like doing more interviews and magazine stuff than I'm actually sitting on the table making music felt strange. Doing more FaceTime with people than I ever had before my whole entire years of being a hermit felt strange. So making peace with like who we are, what's sustainable, what we're willing to do with music gave me like a renewable source of energy. Like if I was
Hmm.
to say yes to this job or no to this job, I know it's coming from, is this sustainable? Like it always refers back to my intentions with music, right? Back then, I had no experience at all, so all I did was just like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I only realized it's a nope. Like at the
You
end of
didn't have
it,
the time to form the expectations, right? I mean, it just came at you so fast.
yeah.
You kind of started talking about how like the OP1 came along and took you in a new direction.
Wow, the OP one, I can't even think of it without smiling so much because I remember after that 4 years, I came back into YouTube, right? And Instagram, just like, hey, what's up? What's everyone up to? I was just off social media for a while with my social media. And then I remember starting to do some like Spitfire audio VSTs because I got into Ableton. And for that whole year, I think I was just exploring, like doing stuff I really love. I was doing like Fantastic Beast covers because I just love Fantastic Beast and Westworld. And then one day, when I was doing a Stranger Things cover, the video that was recommended for me to watch was the OP1 Stranger Things, right? And I was like, what is this beautiful thing? What is this? So I clicked that video and it was a Stranger Things cover by Lucanti. So then I was like, okay, I just need to get this. Whatever this thing is, I need to order one. I need to buy one. So again, I naively went to my like local music store and be like, may I purchase an OP1, please? And the guy that knows me there, he was like, ha, nice try. There's like 9 people on the waiting list. Like you'll never get one within the next 3 months. And I was thinking, no, 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 no. I have to have it. And they're like, we have a display model. I can give you headphones and you can just feel it, have a vibe with it. The minute like my friend put it on my hands, this is not a toy, was the words
Hmm.
that came out of my mouth. I was like, this is not a toy. There's a lot of weight to it. Like
Hmm.
it's built like a tank of this thing. And my local store guy was just like, that's what everyone says. The first time they
I had the
hold one,
same
they're like,
impression.
this
I
is
was
not
like,
a toy.
oh,
Yeah, like it looks like a toy because it's so small and it's so unassuming. It's so like it's gorgeous, right? But it's not a toy. And I was like, okay, put me on the waiting list. And I would just check in every week. I signed myself, all of my emails, my friends' emails, whoever who had an email, I was like, please sign up on the waiting list for Teenage Engineering's website for me. The minute you get an email, I need to buy it. Okay, just tell me. I don't care if it's 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I have my card ready. I'm gonna do this. And I remember being in the car and I was trying to play a song for my partner to listen and it just wouldn't play. It was like zzz, zzz, zzz. And I was like, ugh. I was like, why wouldn't you play this song? And then suddenly I was just like, I had this thought in my mind, like, go check your email. And Teenage Engineering released like, hey, we have limited stocks of OP1 right now. Hop on it. And I just went, stop the car. My partner stopped the car in the parking lot. And I was like, I'm not leaving this car until I purchase my OP1. And I purchased it. And I got the email confirmation and that it's coming in whatever time. And I just went, this is the beginning of something new. I was like, this is the beginning of something new. And my partner's just like, you've never even played with that thing. Technically, you've never even used that thing. You only held it in your hands in the store because he was there with me when I held it. And I was like, no, babe, I know this. I just know this in my heart. Like, I just know this. And he's just like, wow, okay, fair enough. When it arrived, I put out my first video. I think it was like August 2018. I think I was spinning the tombola or something like that. And then I started, and I didn't even know that there was a community of OP1 lovers or there were like hashtags for it. But somehow, like people started finding that video as I kept making more and more videos. I started to feel this train started to move. And it was at a pace where I just felt like I was just there making all these videos every few days. Like I couldn't get my hands off the OP1. I think in that period of time, it's like I made a video for the tombola, every sequencer, my favorite synths. Like I just couldn't stop exploring it and sharing it. And then suddenly, without me knowing it, it's like I started meeting so many people from the OP1 community, people who had it for many years. And I also connected with Lucanti, the guy who I just messaged him one day. I was just like, because I think we connected through the community. He's like, hey, great video. I was just like, oh, it's you. Because he has a different name on YouTube that he has on Instagram, but I recognized his aesthetic. And I was just like, are you I can't even pronounce that YouTube channel name now, and he was like, yes, it's me. And I was like, I have to tell you, you are the reason why your suggested video from my Stranger Things song is the reason why I had this huge hunch that like I want to get an OP1 and just have it blow my mind. And he's like, oh, and we both were saying stuff like, if only TE knew how much we love their stuff. And I remember telling him like, yeah, I know if any of them knew how much I love their stuff, or they even knew I was alive, I literally I just like I die so happy, you know. Like I remember saying these things, and then one day, keep seeing Teenage Engineering pop up, like liking my videos, and then just kind of like sharing my videos. And I just went, oh my gosh, I think they kind of ish know that I'm alive, but I cannot confirm. It's just there's so many people that they're posting and sharing. I was just like, do they even know I'm alive? And then their POM 400, their first modular came out. And I remember I was on the way to the store to get an OPZ. But I was very set on spending my money on a Euro rack or a grandmother Moog. But the budget, I was just like, it's so expensive. Like, isn't there a middle range somewhere where people just pick out the modules for us and we can just build it? Boom. That day itself, I got the email that the POM 400 is released. And I was like, my goodness, man. Whenever I check my email, it's a sign. Like I was just so stressed. Like, should I be spending that money on this or that or this or that? And I was like, but I know I want to get into modular after the OP1. So I got that and I started making videos with that. And then, yeah, I got the message from Tobias from Teenage Engineering, who's literally like the face of Teenage Engineering in a lot of the videos. Like, so I immediately recognized, like, I was like, oh, I was literally assembling, sharing it on my stories. And, you know, I remember asking Tobias, it's like, hey, does this film part go in there? Just double checking. Yeah. So I posted the videos. And then weeks later, he was like, hey, you know, like to invite you to be a Teenage Engineering mentor, you know, love your videos and stuff like that. And I think I just like fell on the floor and I was just rolling there for like a couple of like hours. I was just like, oh my gosh, my answer is yes. Me? You know, I was just like, me? Really? And I remember feeling like that was the first time after feeling very lost. Like I got onto that roller coaster, winning that competition, falling off, then started to meet very genuine people. And then Teenage Engineering knew how much I loved their products and I was using it all the time. And then suddenly, like, being invited to be a mentor, it just really made me feel like that was the first hug I've gotten that really started to like heal the wounds. It almost felt
Mm.
like I'm understood. Like the things I want to do, it's like these people love it. Teenage engineering loves it. It's like it's not crazy, it's cool. And if it's crazy, it's cool. Like I never felt limited in the presence of teenage engineering. I've almost felt like our ideologies matched, where like why not is the answer. Let's try this. Like it's not the traditional way of seeing things. And I was so sold with their point of view as a company, where you could create something that's so portable, so powerful, that is a game changer in how musicians create.
Mm.
It took me out of my studio. I remember traveling to New York, and I was making videos with the OP1, you know, after walking the Brooklyn Bridge. And I'm like, where else, how else would I be able to do this if it's not with an OP1? Like, I need to find a power circuit for my other gear, like, or I need to have a lot of batteries shoved in there. But with the OP1, like, I was always able to be a musician anywhere, anytime. And so the OP1 is a very significant like comeback for me into like music. It was the first door that I went in, and I felt like I don't have the same question marks I used to have when I was walking through that first door of like touring, singing my songs on stage, and being in a different place than I've been used to. With this OP1, it just felt like it was really meant to be, like, and it also made sense of so much turmoil that I said no to so many things, and I decided to get off that train. And when I got on the teenage engineering train, I was just like, is this what it feels like when you're in the right place and you have no more questions? Like, like there's no resistance. I just felt like I can finally be myself, and I can make music that I really want to make. And even is this even a thing where I'm making videos almost every alternate day, and I'm just posting it on Instagram, and I'm meeting friends? Like, can this be a new way of survival in music for musicians? Like, and it has been. A lot of people are actually using like social media to actually meet people that they truly connect with, people that you can tell how your week is going. I didn't even expect that. Now I'm meeting people like from Paris, from Iceland, like from New York, like, and we just go, hey, how's your day going? And yeah, good. Guess what? I bought new gear. And that's been my life now for the last couple of years, where my joy and happiness comes from checking in on each other, I guess, and watching each other grow and being happy for them when they get good job opportunities, when they work with brands. Like, it's so much more meaningful when you can be genuinely happy for your fellow musicians, watch them carve out their own niche, and truly support them and hope that they're going to succeed. Because as a whole, right, like, I always feel like our community is like bubbling under the surface, and the whole world just needs to know like how wonderful Brian is, like how wonderful my friend Johnny Be Good 89 is, and my friend Billy Why You Sleep in Paris is. Like, they're not just usernames to me. Like, they're friends who I'm like, I hope you succeed in music. I hope you never leave this landscape, because my world would be so lonely and so boring and so dark without your presence. Like, I don't understand this. Like, you know, if people can't be happy for other people, like, because it's only benefiting the landscape, right? If we
Mm.
all stick together and say, whatever you want to do, I'm going to help you achieve it. Okay, like, if you have a thing you want me to join in, I'm going to join in. And together, we're not competitors. Like, I'll never see another musician as like, here's another shark coming. We're a shark. Everybody's a shark. Like, for me, it's just like, we're all Nemo, and we're just gonna find our way, right? Like, we're just gonna find our happy place, and we're gonna feel very at home at the end of this journey. We're all gonna be 100 years old, still messaging each other and being like, hey, during the time that we did music, didn't we give it our all? Yeah, we did.
Mm.
Yeah, we did. Like, as long as that star shined so brightly in all places, in all ways, Like I'm going to be very happy. And that's what I'm seeing now in the community. Like people are doing great work with brands. People are making great albums and they need to feel like it matters. Not just from a grand scale, like, oh, I'm selling out and everything's wonderful. They need to almost have that one on one contact where it's just like, love this album, love the other album, love that you're exploring, do it without fear. So, yeah, so the OP one really taught me all these things about community, being happy for each other, being happy when somebody finally gets their OP1 or OPZ. There's this joy that is so lost sometimes, I feel like, in the real world. Like it's so competitive sometimes. Like just from my point of view, like even when I read news about Grammys or whatever, I'm just like, oh man, there's so much conflict and headlines and stuff. Like, don't people aren't people just happy to, like you know, sorry, I shouldn't quote the Grammys because I don't know too much about it, but what I'm saying is like,
Yeah, I know what you mean, though.
you know what I mean? Like sometimes it
The
feels like,
community. Well, it reminds me of like when I was first playing in bands in the local music scene. And there were some bands that were your competition, and there were other bands that
oh,
were part of the scene. And the ones that stuck around were the ones that were part of the scene. And as they grew, other bands grew with them. Like we would have shows and they would be they were just an event. You would just go to the show. You almost didn't even know who was playing. It was the show. The scene was having the show. But then there would be other shows where it was like so divided where you didn't know any of the bands and no one really went to those shows. So like to compete, it's not like I don't know. It's not like if I'm eating lunch, I'm either going to get like McDonald's or Burger King. Like I can listen to everybody's music and I can enjoy everyone's band. So there's no reason to see it that way. And I think when you work together, it only helps because the other people doing it are fans of music. They're really, in a lot of ways, they're your audience. Take the OP1 teenage engineering community. Like it's so specific as far as like a scene goes with music that if you saw like those people as your competition, then who is your audience? Because
mm,
they're the audience, and a couple of those people you mentioned, I know them, I follow them, like just through this little world, and it's kind of silly to see it as competition. You see it sometimes on YouTube, even like where like certain YouTubers will get together and work together, and you're like
mm.
surprised, like, oh wow, look, these guys are making a song together. I figured they were competition, but no, they're doing the same thing. They're like teammates more like. So yeah, I definitely see that, and I mean, yeah, I got that a lot with the Ableton Live community when I first started learning how to use Live. Really, what got me into using Live was I was on YouTube looking for Logic tutorials, and I would always get these Ableton tutorials would pop up. And I'd watch them because if it was talking about like using a compressor, I could still apply that to what was going on in Logic. But pretty soon I was like, I should check this out. Everyone's doing
Mm.
this. And yeah, it pulled me right in. And OP1 was very similar for me.
Mm.
I remember when I first took it out of that box, I was like, oh, okay, we're not kidding around here.
Mm.
And it was, I felt like I'd taken a risk on it. I think it was 2011 when I got mine. And, you know, I really the only person I knew that made any videos on it was Cuckoo. He had some videos going that helped me learn it. And right away, though, like you said, I was just having so much fun with it. I was on my first like tape. You get your like 6 minutes of your 4-track tape. I was in my kitchen recording. I was outside. I took a bike ride to like the creek, like the little the lake with the little like kind of stream going, and you can hear it in the background as I'm like recording stuff. And I just had such a good time with it, and it's been the thing that I would say probably like of most of my gear, it'd be like one of those things. Like if it broke down, I'd have to get another one.
Mm.
Like I would miss it
I
so much.
I
It's
know.
I mean, I even used it to record. I just plugged a microphone into it, a 57, sure
Wow.
SM57, and I did like a punk rock album on it, just with the 4-track recorder.
Wow.
It was so fun. It was so immediate. I just had the mic, the headphones, and that was it. Everything was just walking around the room, put it on the guitar, put it on the bass, put it on the vocals, and just had a blast. And
That's amazing.
I find it just so inspiring every time I use it. I do things I wouldn't normally do. I try stuff that it's not a toy, but it feels like a toy in a way. Like it's
Yeah, because you have
playful,
fun.
like a toy. Yeah.
I hear you.
And I get that from, I have some of the pocket operators and it's got that similar thing too. I haven't gotten the modular or even the OPZ. I mean, I definitely want to, but yeah, I mean, it's just like you said, like this, like different look. It's not. There's, like, got a few synths behind me. If one of them wasn't working, I've got another one that does pretty much the same thing.
Mm-mm-mm.
I don't have anything else that does what the OP1 does, because there is nothing else that does what the OP1 does.
And how amazing is True Cuckoo? Like you couldn't go on YouTube and type in anything like OP1 or PZ without actually seeing like True Cuckoo's like wonderful tutorials and presence and even just True Cuckoo's voice.
Yeah,
It's just so iconic and that mirror,
yeah,
it's just like how do you not just smile and be like, "Oh, True Cuckoo's the best." you know?
yeah. Yeah, he was a lot of fun to talk to. I had him on the podcast a little while back. And he was just like that. He was kind of like sitting, I think he was like sitting in like a
Yeah.
windowsill, just kind of laid back. He might have
I
even been
know.
holding the mic, but it was just so relaxed. And yeah, he's fun, and he does really cool stuff with it. I mean, he hits on
Yeah.
so many things that I'm into. Like he does like video game themes on it sometimes,
Yes. Animation.
and the
I know you spoke
animation, yeah.
about animation. And I love that part where he said that when people see him, they just say thank you. Like that's one of the things that people just go, thank you so much because of how much he's helped people, get into music and create music and understand their gear more. So that part of your interview and podcast with True Cuckoo really like touched the soul, because that's true. Like True Cuckoo has helped so many people get closer to their gear, and he does it in a way that's just so calm and so serene. Like True Cuckoo's voice is just so chill.
Mm,
Like I can even imagine it in my head right now when he's just walking you through an OPZ. It's just like, all right, so you have this, and he would animate kind of like the sequences and stuff. So yeah,
right.
shout out to True Cuckoo.
I
Super wonderful
I was
legend.
reading an interview with Pete Townsend of The Who, and he mentioned Cuckoo. He's like, I get all these boxes, that I'm using, and I have to admit, I wouldn't know how to do anything without Cuckoo. Which I was like, wow.
Oh, True Cuckoo, you're
But how
wonderful.
cool is it too? It's not a one-way street though either. I mean, he's helped so many people, and that has in turn helped him, do what he does.
Yeah.
And I kind of remember a time period where he was talking about it in a video or maybe it's social media. I kind of forget, but where he was saying like, I'm gonna be able to make this my job. This is gonna be what I do. And it was just really cool to see him like cross that point where now this is what he's doing, and he's pursuing his art, and
That's amazing.
by giving, he kept giving and giving and giving, and it eventually comes back, as they say.
That's amazing. Like,
Mm.
here's to True Cuckoo.
Yeah.
Oops.
Cheers.
Mm, cheers.
I'll put that in the show notes for anyone listening if they want to see or listen to the conversation. It was a lot of fun to talk to him, and like right
Yeah.
away, just like friendly, easygoing guy.
Mm.
It's not a show, on the videos. That's him. So let me ask you. I'm keeping you a long time. It's like halfway through your tomorrow, and almost the end of my last night for you. Being in Australia, I'm in New York. We're in different days right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what's happening next? Not to put that pressure on you. Now what are you gonna do? We just spoke about that for a while, but anything fun that you're working on that you can discuss, or do you want to tell people about anything to check out?
Yeah, I just finished like a couple of stuff for Spitfire Audio. Like,
Oh,
when
I
I was
heard you. Sorry to interrupt, but I just got excited. You're using those the soft piano, which is free, the Spitfire Labs.
yeah.
It just sounds so good. You put it to great use. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. That's my favorite, the
Yeah.
labs. So, at the beginning, I started to do a lot of Spitfire Audio stuff, and they're probably the only like libraries that I've used at the beginning of, coming back to making music as a producer on my own. Even before the OP1 came into the picture, like Spitfire Audio was very much in my radar. And I just thought, wow, I mean, for someone like me, that's just so perfect because, I have like my MIDI keyboard and I want to be able to feel a felt piano vibes or, beautiful cinematic pads and stuff like that. So I just kept using it throughout the years. And then recently they kind of came across my stuff and then we started to collaborate. Like they would just send me like stuff that they're about to release and they're like, here you go, have a first, ride with it and then create something with it. And for me, those projects were like a new level in my music career because I just thought like I love Spitfire Audio so much. And just being able to work for them, create content for them, or even know what's coming out as it's coming out, it just felt full circle, because at that time I felt so lost, like coming back, all right, I'm starting from scratch. What do I want to do? And I was just like, Spitfire Audio draws me in, Teenage Engineering draws me in. I'd love to work with them someday. I'd love to be a part of what they're building, their communities, because two have very different communities. So with Spitfire Audio, I started to meet a lot of like really legit composers through my work for Spitfire Audio. Like, I don't know if you've watched like the Netflix series Drive to Survive,
I don't
but
know. No.
and some of the composers for Netflix stuff, right? And then suddenly they found me and they're like, "Hey, we found you through Spitfire, your videos on Spitfire Audio. I love what you do." And for me, like being a producer and hoping to keep composing also for like things, it just feels like when a real composer who works for Netflix tells you they love your stuff, right? You just go like, "Really? That's so cool." Like I because I've not studied music and I try to like read some books about it just to make sure like I keep myself up to date and maybe feel more confident, when I'm doing my composing stuff. But Spitfire Audio is like helping me mature. I feel like they look at me and they're like, "We love your stuff." They never really questioned if like, do you know theory? Do you know this? Do you know that? Because I tried to join some scoring competitions and they'll be like, "Submit your chart." And that's how you enter it. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what, submit just paperwork? Like, I'm going to show you how it sounds like, right? No, just submit your chart. And I almost by default, I just can't enter it because I still don't know how to use Sibelius or like how to. Seriously, they just look like dots to me still. So with Spitfire Audio, I just feel like they've kind of accelerated and like matured me in a sense where it's just like, we're a company for all kinds of composers, like bedroom musicians, people who are composers, not composers, whatever you do, as long as you love doing music, that's it. And that's when I found my kind of like my place in the composer side of things is that Spitfire Audio just contacts me and like gives me a job. And then if I'm able to, but when I'm able to do it and they love it, it just feels like there's that confidence that I never used to have, where I just think I don't qualify for composing competitions because I'm still trying to understand how do you there's a different chart for the viola and the violin. And Brian, do you know theory? Like, obviously you do, right?
I don't read music though, so I'm not making any charts or anything
So we're
like
the
that.
same. It's all just by ear and by feel.
Yeah, well, I've studied a little bit. I took some guitar lessons growing up, and then in college, I took what I could get, to fill in the gaps of my degree, which was a few theory classes and some other, stuff. But yeah, other than that, like, no, I'm not. I love learning about it. It's like sort of like learning the how to cast the spell for the magic, because when it comes together, it's always like magic. But it's fun to like see the ingredients that went in the potion. So yeah, I don't know. I don't read music though, so I couldn't make a chart.
Yeah, so I can't read music too, but I've always loved like the soundtracking side of things. Like I love the soundtrack of Jurassic Park. I love John Williams. Like so after like once I started producing my own stuff, like I really wanted to try my hand in like any competition that didn't require a chart. And some like I was able to kind of like win. So I was just thinking, okay, cool, Now I wonder if Spitfire Audio loves what I do and stuff. And because I know they have content and people they feature on their platform. And I think secretly in my heart, it's just like, I wonder like, oh man, would I be good enough, to be one of those people that they love how I use their stuff and they might feature me. But this year, like I did 3 for them and I really gave my all on that one. And they were very happy with it. So it just makes me like, I just hope I have more opportunities to keep working for them. You know what I mean?
Nice.
That's like when I look at this year, it's like, I think how my music has, I mean, career wise and work wise, it would always just pop up in an email and they'll just go, hey, I'm doing this Witcher kind of like sculpture. And we just want to see if you are able to soundtrack some stuff for us in Los Angeles. And then I just said yes. And I ended up doing that project as well. So it's these things where I told myself, like, whatever comes my way, and I feel like I'm going to be able to stretch a little bit because I've not done soundtracking stuff very much in the last couple of years because I was just so focused on my OP1 and like the community and doing all of those things that suddenly people were saying like, hey, I really think your vibe is very cinematic and very ambient that I think it's going to suit our Witcher sculpture series. And I'm like, yes. Or Spitfire Audio is just like, I think you would be great working on our new originals instruments and we want you to like create some stuff. And I'm like, yes. So I think the more I kind of tell myself like, I'm not going to steer this ship too hard. I'm actually just going to like make sure I'm moving forward. Then whatever opportunities is just going to help me navigate, like, I guess the final destination, if that makes sense. Because I used to be so stressed thinking like, okay, if I'm going to be a full-time musician one day, like I need to have my niche, right? I need to just do one thing. And on YouTube there's the cover route where like people do covers, then they start to get known. And I remember like my partner saying like, why don't you start doing covers now that you're back in music? I'm like, I'm not good at them. Like seriously, because I know some of my friends from the community are so good, Brian, at making covers. They sing it so good that I'm just like, I'm listening to your version from now on. But whenever it's my turn to kind of like, if I hear a song I like on the radio or whatever, I don't know why for some reason it's like I'm not very good at translating those feelings into something that I think is very spectacular. Do you ever feel that way? Like even though you love a song so much, you kind of like do your own take on it. I don't know. Have you done covers?
Oh, we've played covers in bands, and I love learning. That's how I do a lot of my learning too, is just learning songs, the chords and the melodies, playing them on the guitar just to get a sense of how they work. But I think a long time ago,
Yeah.
maybe out of like realizing I was never going to sound like them anyway, I just kind of do them the way they come out of me, you know. But I don't really take it very seriously. It's more like just because it's a song I like and I want to learn it and understand how it works. I don't think I've ever really put anything online like
It's
seriously, you know.
it's an art, right? When you think about
Oh
it, because
yeah,
when I
yeah.
first got into music, my partner was saying like, because he's in logistics, like he doesn't count himself as being like a creative person or an artist or anything. He's very like logistical, organized, and very good at math. Like he's like his mind. So when we got together, he's like, oh my gosh, creative people are so fascinating. It's like you can just create something out of like your instruments and all these music. And he was trying to like tell me like, so how do you get your brand to grow if you're a musician on YouTube? He's like, do you guys do cover songs? And I'm like, I guess that's one avenue that people do to be known. Because I remember listening to How I Built This podcast with Guy Raz, one of my favorite ones. He was interviewing Jack Conti from Pomplamoose, who's also the founder of Patreon. And I remember in that episode, they were saying something about a Beyonce cover, and then they started to get known. And then like at that time, cover songs were a popping way to kind of get into being known on YouTube. And I remember too, I couldn't go onto YouTube without it being suggested like a cover of this song. Whenever a song gets released, that cover song would literally already be like 1 million views or something. So my partner was saying like, hey, I think cover songs are a good way to get in. And I remember not even being able to pick a cover song that I was going to do because I'm like, I don't think I can sing like Lana Del Rey. I don't think I can sing like Beyonce. Like, I only knew how to be myself. And it started to feel like, oh no, there's no way in for me to build a following on YouTube if I'm just going to like not be able to be seen in the marketplace. Like, because it felt like YouTube can be a place where what's trending, and then suddenly pranks became a trending thing on YouTube, or mukbang where people just eat a lot of food and stuff like that. So I realized like, I think I'm just gonna slowly just make my videos, and whoever finds me, you know? So yeah, so there were some pressures in terms of like, how do you be seen on a platform? Like, you always want to make sure that like all the work that you put effort into putting into a video, someone's gonna see it, right? Because it gets discouraging after a while. And I remember the first few Spitfire audio videos that I was doing, it's like 2 views. I think it's one from my partner and one from my best friend. And they were even like trying to be nice and be like, no, I didn't watch it, I think it's someone else. I'm like, no, I
Yeah.
think it's the both of you. Because it's just the 2 people that were watching my videos for. And nowadays, like when people come to me and talk to me about views, I'm just like, hey, don't even sweat that. Don't. Don't ever look at the numbers. Don't ever look at the followers. I know it's something where it's just like, how do you not, right? But I'm like, it gets really,
You get
that's where
obsessed with it. Yeah.
yeah, and it just hits you in a very bad mental way where you're like, what's my year going to look like with music? And every time I plan something, Brian, it just doesn't go my way. If I'm just going like, this year, I'm just going to focus on this kind of videos, I'm going to do a series of it. And then suddenly I'll just get like 5 jobs. And then I'm just completely smashed. Like in just I just think in the last few weeks, like I've just been on this desk for like a couple of hours straight. And then I haven't even touch my Instagram because I'm just so busy doing work that's just gonna like keep the lights on to pay the bills. And then because I'm not so hung up to the fact that like my channel needs to look a certain way, I need to do things a certain way because I want to be perceived a certain way. I've learned to kind of just like whatever comes, do it. And then when it's low tide season and you don't have a lot of work, it's like just make the videos that you want to make without stressing like, but is that going to feed me though? Is that going to keep the lights on though? Because I realize like we all deal with that pressure and it gets kind of a lot, I guess.
I
So
think
yeah.
it looks great, honestly. But that is really good advice, though. You know, put the work in, put the effort in. Don't worry too much about all of the numbers because it can drive you crazy. But I want to tell you because
Mhm.
I thought this was kind of funny. I made a note in my little list of things we might talk about. As I was looking through your videos, I had a hard time finding any videos of yours that had even one dislike in YouTube, like the thumbs down. Like, and I've never, I mean, a lot of people have great channels and make great videos, but I can't think of anyone else that seems to be, like the trolls aren't even giving you a hard time. I was really amazed by that. Like, I couldn't find videos that had thumbs down. It was pretty cool.
But I'm just
Congratulations
not.
on that.
No, I'm just not popular enough. I just feel like,
Well, they have
it's
a lot
like,
of likes, but normally you just get like somebody that will say, I'm mad today and I'm just gonna thumbs down this. Somehow you've managed to get around that. That's pretty cool. So since you're not looking at them, I figured I'd let you know.
thank you. That is so kind. Yeah, I try not to because I came from a place where like I'm so used to not having a lot of views during that years that I'm trying to because if you look at my first video, it's by sea. It's that song that got me that opened the door to New
Oh,
York
that's
and
that's the song by C.
yeah, that's the song, right? And that was the first time where I just felt like, whoa, these views just came in because of the publicity that I was getting, maybe from articles from the newspaper. I was just getting emails going like, "Hey, my little sister wants to get into music. Do you have any tips for my little sister?" Like I started getting all these things. But then once I kept quiet and just kind of went into my hermit cave for 4 years, I kind of left that channel alone.
Hmm.
I think you can see the first video that I put back out there. I think it's Drift or no, not Drift. It's a microcorg video that I put out. Then I realized like here's the 1 2 views, here's the quiet time. I'm truly building from scratch. And that's at the point where I told myself like, hey, you know what? Be so grateful for the 2 views and the 5 people that's watching my Insta stories after disappearing for 4 years.
Hmm.
And they're still the people that until today, now I've come back into music for equally 4 years now. And I always thank them in my stories or I message them and say, hey, you know what? When I was going through the roughest time, it just felt like when I was getting that traction or that publicity, I felt like a lot of people I didn't even know were messaging me. Like people I didn't even people from my circle or my family circle, they just came and be like, wow, you're so awesome that you won this competition. And in my mind, I was just like, shouldn't I be awesome because you know me as a good person or a nice person? Like my mind couldn't fathom like
Yeah.
how are people liking me because I won a competition?
Hmm.
Like, does that make me a good person? Does that
Hmm.
make you want to be friends with me? Like my mind cannot compute. So I felt like so I thought it was very genuine. I just thought all these people who congratulated me and said, "You're wonderful, you're fantastic, like you're born musician, you should do this." And then when I kind of kept quiet, like those people also disappeared, and but then there were people who just stuck by me and said, don't give up. Like I know whatever it is that you're cooking up for being away, like I know it's going to be worth it. Even at the time I didn't even know it was going to be worth it, or the time away. It shocked me so much that there were that handful of people that were like, you're not you're not liked because of those things, or you're not disliked now because you're no longer those things. Like I genuinely just like your music and I hope I hear from you again through your music. And I think from that experience, numbers can no longer please me or hurt me. If a bunch of people started to just like me, or if you blow up overnight and people start loving you more, like I'm just going to love those people that believed in me even more, because I felt that spectrum of just like so much love and then or so much disappointment that I didn't walk that path. And but
Hmm.
then there were those people who just went, I don't know, even though you're feeling lost, like I know you well enough that you know what's best for you. And that's all I want. I just want what's best for you. And that love, that faith wasn't even a faith I had for myself. So it really, and the love that I wanted from the people that I wanted, like when it didn't happen, I was just like, I really need you though. I really need your support. Like you have to believe in me because I don't even believe in myself. And when I didn't get that, I just felt like even smaller. But then it's those strangers, honestly, Brian, like I haven't even met some of those people. They just heard my music and they just felt my presence disappeared and they were like, why?
Hmm.
What happened? Are you going through a bad time? Like they didn't assume that I was just like, nah, I'm over it. I don't feel like it because I have better things to do. No, they actually felt like something was wrong, which was very true. And I wouldn't even tell very close people something was wrong in my head. But these people were just like, hearing your music, you sound like such a sensitive person. Like is it all too much? Like, are you going through a very tough time? Like, it's okay. Like, I still love your music. Or are you feeling overwhelmed? And yeah, so these days, sometimes people tell me like, "Oh, did you know your cleaning your studio video got thousands of like views on Instagram?" I'm just like, "Really?" Like I just try not to, look at why the numbers. I just want to hear from people when they message me like, "Hey, I cleaned my studio today because of you."
Hmm.
And that will mean so much more to me than, tens and thousands of views. Cuz what is that telling me? That I just feel like a bunch of numbers that watched me and I feel good, right? No, it's actually just I want to hear from the people who really are moved by the things that I do. And I didn't even expect the cleaning thing to be a thing because it's just my backdrop as I'm working, right? But then some people just go like, "Can you just tell me how you arrange your gear? Can you just give me top 5 tips of like how you do things?" And then I started making little reels of like, here's the top 3 tips on how to refresh your studio and how to make gears feel new, because if gear acquiring syndrome is such a wonderful thing we suffer from as musicians, but it's good to also kind of like rotate and love your gear, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And even some people were telling me like, your studio is very like sterile, in a sense that they even said like, if I ever visited your studio, I feel I need to come in a hazmat suit or like super sanitize my hands. And I didn't know that was the impression that people were getting from looking at my studio. I didn't know it was that neat. I just thought it's normally like this. But then I started getting like snapshots from all around the world of people showing me their studio before and after. And I'm like, I'm so happy to know we can bond over cleaning our studios. Like, oh my gosh, like this feels better than a million views right now because I'm actually getting to know you. And what's that on your table? I asked them, and they're like, "Oh, that's something from my childhood." And yeah, so I think I'm just grateful for the support that I've gotten, and I'll never take that for granted. Like,
Hmm.
I always want to remember that communities, everything with making music, and numbers will come and go because I felt it. I really felt like, the wave of like, it just felt like, and I remember at the time that I won the competition, my brother was getting married. And I planned already to sing a song for my brother's wedding way before anybody in my family knew I was making music. I already told my mom, like, I just want to surprise my brother and my future sister in law on this song I wrote. But then the news broke out the week before my brother's wedding. And literally, the result of like people not knowing I make music, from people at his wedding just coming up to me and be like, "Hey, I didn't know you're a musician, like we've been listening to your stuff." And they're watching my videos on their iPad like during those things. I'm just like, this is so crazy. Like I don't even know these people, or like, cousins of cousins or my sister-in-law's cousins. It's just like how did this happen? And yeah, I think, and I've also experienced kind of like the low tide and the high tide of it. So I have a realistic kind of impression of like, when the media is kind of promoting you on articles, it's suddenly your Instagram gets like a ton of traffic. And like there is such thing as a low tide, high tide when you experience it. Even when I was featured on like certain brands accounts, right? Then it's just like boom, just overnight there will be like hundreds of people would just follow me, and then they'll just kind of like message me and be like, "Hey, it's so nice to discover your stuff." So it's easy to get swept up in that. So I always tell myself, like, look, whatever comes, be super grateful for it. And whatever goes, like, be grateful for it. But the most important thing is just like put more value in the people than the numbers, in the names than the usernames. Like, I always want to know that when I close my eyes, it's like, and I think of the friends that I made, like Billy, Johnny, Danny, like it just, the smile just gets bigger and the heart just gets warmer. And yeah, that's how I want to imagine music would always be in the future, like community and family.
Well, that's why we do it, right? It's about connecting with people, and it's about sharing who you are, what you're going through, and relating to each other. The best music for all of us is the stuff that hits us. We relate to it and we get into the artist. It's not about any number on the screen or some graph that goes up all of a sudden. Like, that doesn't mean anything. It is really the people, and then if whatever it is you do, whether it's a message or someone singing along or an email, that's the stuff, and it's great that you it went through all of that to come to that understanding, because you seem talking to you right off the bat, I picked up on your positive energy. As soon as this call started, right away that was apparent. Even back to the emails, I was just some guy out of nowhere sending you an email, seeing if you wanted to do a podcast, and it was really nice to immediately get that that sense of gratitude, like you are really enjoying what you're doing, and I think that's what people are responding to.
I'm actually a huge fan of podcasts. Like, I remember the first one that I did. Um, I was so nervous for a month. Like, I remember, like, it's a teenage. It's called Small Operations. I love that podcast so much, and I remember being invited to do it. And because I love podcasts so much, and I want to see that community like continue to churn out these amazing things, like the things that really blow my mind are from podcasts. Like how I built this, like even the book of like Guy Raz is literally on my shelf. I feel like at my lowest of lows, right, I would just do some gardening. Cleaning is my way of like detaching and just kind of absorbing new information. And I am so grateful to the podcast community and the dedication it takes to kind of like close your eyes, do your stuff, and you can just hear these people's voices deep diving so deeply. And I always benefit from podcasts where the guest is giving you something that is so raw and open that you probably wouldn't get in another forum. Because when I do interviews on print, it's a very like direct question, it's not a conversation. So I keep it a paragraph and I let it go. But with podcasts, I've noticed, like, I think this is my fourth one. And I was so happy that, like, you know, that you asked me because I was looking at your stuff and I was listening to your music and I was, deep diving into your podcast. I'm just like, yeah, this is the energy that I'd love to dive into. And this is the community that is so loving. Like, you really are shining the light and having really deep and meaningful conversations that can help other people get out of their rut. Or you could be kind of like elevating that person. Because I remember one of your episodes, again, the Mortal Kombat one, right? If somebody didn't listen, if let's say someone didn't come across that video, and because of your podcast, they came across that video, their life is going to be like so much more funner on that day, just knowing that video exists. Like, so I love that you just cover all the topics and just let it flow. Because those are the kind of podcasts that people kind of like can let their guard down and then just really tell you the deepest and the darkest. And at the beginning of my first podcast experience, I felt like, wow, this is my first podcast experience. I really enjoyed it. And then the last one I did before this one, I could feel like the interviewer was wanting to get deeper into the hardships and like the openness and stuff. And that really healed me for being able to say, like, yeah, it wasn't a good time. And then now doing your podcast, it's just like, no, it was a really bad time. Like I could feel like I could feel even through podcast, like the shell is just kind of breaking completely. So at this point with yours today, I could even feel myself like if Brian caught up with me and this was the first podcast, I think part of me wouldn't even know how to open up, right? Even though I love podcasts so much, but then because like this is my fourth one, and I realized that I'm not doing anyone any favors if I came onto a podcast and just be like, yeah, it's all good. Everything's fine. No, yeah, this is how I do things. Cause I don't relate to people in the highlights. I relate to people in the darkest times. Like that's just even sad music. Like I'm just like, ooh, yes. I'm a very like, and it's so crazy because you're the second person that told me like I'm very positive. Like even from like the email or the podcast. And the strangest thing is like most of the time I connect to a lot of sadness and emotional stuff. So I don't know how it's coming off as positive sometimes. Maybe just naive and nervous sometimes.
Well, you've managed to take the difficult times and spin it into something positive, and you've turned it into a valuable lesson and many lessons, really. And, that's, I think, even though we were talking a lot about some difficult times, like it does have this happy ending. And I think that is a result of your decision to look at it in that positive light. I'm the same way. There's some music I just love to be depressed to. It feels good to feel bad listening to.
I know. Seriously, why does it work like that? Name me your one most indulgent, like, and I'm gonna listen to it right after, like, but you just know that when you're having a bad day and you just go like, let's just be sad together right now.
Oh man, that's a good question. I got a lot of that. I don't know if this is my best answer, but Radiohead sometimes hits that for me, like OK Computer, like. But I'll listen to that when I'm happy too. But yeah, there's so much. It's hard to say. If I was really down in the dumps, where would I go? I might go to something softer too. You mentioned Neil Young. I always love Neil Young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I might have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, in the comment section in
Yeah.
the
I feel
on the
like there's some
YouTube,
good answers.
because it
Yeah,
really helps,
it
doesn't
does.
it?
Yeah,
So,
there's some music that's just good to wallow in. A lot of times it's instrumental, ambient stuff, and not even necessarily anything specific, but just something that kind of just sets a vibe. It's not really, I don't know. But then at the same time, a lot of what I like to do, it was one of my. I can remember being very young and like realizing like when I heard a song, it made me feel different afterwards. I think I was probably like angry or something, and I heard a certain song, and then I wasn't angry anymore. And I was like, hey, that song did that to me.
what song was
Oh,
that,
I have
Brian?
no idea. It was, I think it was probably like Aerosmith, some random like Aerosmith tape I had that just picked me up, you know? But I use that music a lot for that too, like sometimes to just pull me out of it, you know? I think
Wow.
it's nice to go in it too, like when you are having negative, sad feelings, to feel them, to go through it. I had
Yeah.
this a funny story, and I was probably, I was an adult by this point, but
Tell us.
I was at a haunted house.
Yeah.
My wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, uh, loved going to haunted houses for Halloween, and I just wasn't into it. Like these people gonna jump at me and like get in my face. I was like, "Nah, I don't know. Like, I have better ways to spend my time, I guess." But we went to two, and the first one, I got like, I was like numb. I just made myself numb, and I walked through it. I was just like, I'm just gonna walk through this thing. I barely looked at anything, and just was able to like almost shut off as I went through it. And I was like so proud of myself after it. I was like, oh man, that was great. I didn't even feel anything. And one of the guys that was there was like, no, no, you're doing it all wrong, man. Like, no, you gotta feel it. You gotta let it happen.
Okay.
So we went to this other one right after that, and that's what I did. I really took it in, and I experienced it. I let myself get scared, and
Okay.
and laugh about it after it happened because I mean, it's obviously like a safe scare. But it was a pretty interesting experience. Like I think it applies to a lot of feelings. Like sometimes you just should go through it. You should just
Yeah.
just be sad, just be angry. Let it run its course.
Yeah.
And then because it does pass. It does eventually pass. Even if you're really pissed about something, there's always like a couple seconds where you forget to be pissed and you laugh at something, or something happens that just pulls you out of it. But if you don't, like, I had such a better experience going through it and letting it hit me, and being afraid
Yeah.
of it, and being
Yeah.
like taking it in and like looking around the corner and wondering if there was like a guy with a chainsaw about to jump out.
Oh,
It was so much more fun. It was such a more full experience than when I shut myself down and just, it was like I wasn't there. And I wasn't in the moment. I was just in my head somewhere, lost.
wow. I'm actually going to keep that one for my entire life because that is something I need to hear, I think. Because I'm the same with haunted houses. Like, oh man, I just hate that feeling, of being out of control. Like, and I hate that feeling where like someone would just catch me so off guard, and I'll be like, just can I use the word shitting myself on your podcast? Like, is it okay
Gonna
to
have to
are
take
we
it out.
beeping that up?
The
Really?
authorities. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
There's
Like,
no one telling
it's
us
just
what to do.
like I just feel like, again, it led back to like the first time I got onto that train. It's just like I didn't want to be seen shitting myself. It's just like I need to be seen like I got this. Like I know what I'm doing, even though I don't. It's like because when I fall apart in public, it almost feels like I'm going through that pain twice. Like I'm already going through the haunted house and I'm already so scared. And then if people knew I was scared, it just felt like that was the way to really just kind of like hit me even harder. I think my mechanism as a kid is if you don't tell people what you're afraid of or what you're scared of, then they can't hurt you with it. So when you show fear, that's when I feel like blood's in the water and like the sharks are going to come even harder and I would be too weak to defend myself. So my coping mechanism for haunted houses, train ride roller coasters in a music career that I didn't know would like go that way is to numb up, is to really kind of like toughen up and numb up and be like, whatever comes to me, I'm just gonna on the surface be like, it ain't scary, you can't hurt me. But on the inside, all that collateral damage is so painful because we're taking the punches in a way that's not meant to be taken. Like we're just assuming people wanna like kill us in the haunted house, but they're just trying to make us feel something. And this is part of feeling alive, right? So yeah, I'm definitely that person who goes on a roller coaster and be like, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. And then the pictures of me on a roller coaster would be like, I'm frozen or something, because it's like,
Yeah.
you know, rather than some people who I've always looked at them and be like, how are you enjoying being scared for your life? Like we're on a free fall right now and people are just like, yes, I'm alive. And there I am going just like, don't kill me extra. Like I'm most vulnerable right now. I'm without armor. Like, please don't kill me now. So I really love that you shared that because I think a lot of people who are listening to this now take a lot of impact and collateral damage inside their hearts by actually being very numb instead of like, okay, I feel sad. Why do I feel sad? Because that situation happened. Why does that situation bother me? I don't know. Can't dissect it right now. I'm just gonna feel my feelings and let time do its job. Because a lot of things like I realize only time can heal. With the last album, I almost just didn't want to put it out. I'm just like, it's me going through that haunted house and people are watching it happen and me not kind of like doing this or this. It's just me going like, yeah, getting like beat the shit out of in this haunted house and I'm singing a song while I'm getting beat the shit out of, you know? And and when people relate to that song, it's because I was able to, I guess, take the beating and then share that beating in detail. It's just like, so this happened, that happened, didn't feel so good, very sad, but metaphors everywhere open to your interpretation, you know? And I think it's what I needed to hear today as well, because I think my defense mechanism is always to be like, when I'm going through something that I think is going to give me like anxiety or it's not going to be so great, I never just kind of submit myself to it. I just hang on tight and hope for the best. I want to learn after what you said to be okay to be scared and be sad publicly, you know, rather than yeah, and it's something that I'm doing on my Insta stories a lot too. I think those who follow me closely will know that like the YouTube is a different platform, a longer format. The feed is a different format, but the Insta stories is where you kind of sometimes catch me just doing like the everyday thing, or if I'm not feeling like in such a good mood, I'll just tell people like, you know, this song makes me really sad, but I'm just gonna say it, and I'm just going to ask you guys if you're feeling good today. And most of the time, the people who follow me on my stories, you know, they respond to those messages. I mean, they respond to the stories in messages, and they're like, "Yeah, actually, I don't really have things together. The pandemic's been really rough. I just come to your channel just to feel peaceful sometimes, just feel at ease." Because I think they know that even though if I'm having a bad day, I'll tell them, but I always try to like make them feel calm. Like, it's okay. Like, can't do anything much about it. I hope this piano sound that's also free. You won't be, you know, burning a hole in your pocket if you decided to get this because it's a free software. Like, I'm becoming more mindful as well that maybe not everybody can afford to get certain things or buy certain things. You wouldn't even know how many times like I get a DM of just like, hey, OP1 or OPZ, OP1 or OPZ, you know, and I'll just kind of like walk them through like, okay, so what's your budget today? And what are you hoping to achieve? Because for them, they were in the same place that I was, where it's just like I have one budget and I want to hit it hard and I want to know that I'm getting the stuff that I really want. And I'll also suggest them some free VSTs, free softwares. Like every time someone's like, hey, I want to get into Moog, I love your grandmother, Moog vibes, I always tell them like, try the app, you know? Do you have a Moog?
I have, this is the Sub Fatty.
Ooh,
That's
let me see.
a little bit older. I don't know if they make those anymore. They might have just moved it up to the, there's another fatty they have. I forget what it's called right now. But
Have you done a studio tour on YouTube before where you walk through all of your stuff?
no, I haven't. No, maybe that'd be a fun thing to do one day. I'll have to clean up a
I'm
little.
always so curious. Like now I'm already like, what's behind you? I can't see. I can't see all these things and I just kind of want to see even more. Yeah, I can't see too much at the moment,
Yeah,
but
a little dark, I guess.
yeah, it got
Just
dark.
yeah, I told you it would.
My side, it's like the sun went like and just went past because my studio, like at a certain time, I don't know if you can see, like it, like get
Yeah,
direct sunlight.
I've seen the like window light change a little bit on you.
If we did a time lapse, it's like me and you have talked for like 6 days, you know?
That happens when I do these videos. As I'm like scrolling through them, I can see like the time pass.
Did we hit all of the topics? I'm sorry if like it
Oh,
just went
it's
out of your
we
question
we
box.
got most of them more or less, I think, you know. But I think that's the fun of this, you know. Let it go a little bit. I mean, there's things that I don't think I could have ever wrote down to have discussed in this conversation. So I'm happy with it, you know. If the people listening aren't. They're always free to, you know, tune out whenever they like. No one's being held hostage here. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, maybe those are some good notes to wrap this up on. So, we have your Instagram. We'll start with that. I'll just shout it out. It's Heymun Music, right? At Heymun
Yeah.
Music. So Heymun, Heymun. And then is there so you got your website too, heymun.com. That kind of connects you everywhere. So that might be,
Yeah.
I don't know where you like to tell people to go. Maybe I should just ask you. I'm just throwing things
Anywhere
out.
like yeah, the Heyman.com was what I was thinking. It's more of like a professional landing spot,
Hmm.
like for people who like hire me to compose or to when brands like work with me. I always thought like, oh, that would be a good place to just say
I think it's
heyman.com.
good to have a website for anyone, you know, putting their music out there because tomorrow Instagram could change everything. YouTube can change everything. I remember when MySpace changed everything or fell off the map or whatever happened, you know, like one of the last bands I was in, we had everything on MySpace. That was just we even I think put it on our album myspace.com you know, and
Yeah.
so that was a lesson learned. It's good to have that stuff in your own control.
Yeah, and I'm kind of figuring out which platform. Like, I would say that like most of the people that I know, like they're on Instagram,
Hmm.
and I started out actually wanting to do more stuff on YouTube. Like, I remember because I love the ratio, and I love like how much you can watch it. You can have like an hour's worth, however long you want. Like YouTube supports that, and Instagram was like a different. But my Instagram kind of like took off more quickly than my YouTube.
OP1's big on Instagram. It,
Yeah, you
it
feel
it
that? Do
lends
you feel?
itself to it somehow.
Yeah, and like I just feel like it's different. People are asking me about which platform I like more because I have like I tried my hand on TikTok as well. I would say that's my least used is TikTok, but my partner loves TikTok. Like he'll just scroll and he'll just laugh like at all these dog videos and like it's just too funny. He's just like, "What TikTok is the best thing ever." I'm like, well, I guess you got a target audience for everything, right? Like he just loves that 15 to 30 seconds of just quick humor that just keeps popping past. I love Instagram, like I'm there on Heyman Music. Then I love YouTube. That's where I feel like my long format things are happening. And then the website is just kind of a place where I just feel like it, for my mind's sake, like if everything can just sit at one place, it feels more organized. I think I have a problem with organizing. It's a
No,
bit
I don't
OCD.
think it's a problem. It looks like a strength. You know, that's an important thing. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. So much. I mean, even just with like gear and equipment, like you know, what good is something if you can't find it? You know.
That is so true because now that I have my own space, I didn't even realize like what a trip hazard this studio is. Like I don't know if you've tripped or spilled stuff all over your table, but I got more organized because I need to work faster
Hmm.
in during my projects. Like I really don't need the distraction of the minute I get an email and they're like, this is the deadline, I really don't need to be setting up this place to be conducive for work. It's like, I just wanted to be able to be like, is this set up for composing? Yes. Is this set up ready for my usual videos that I would make for YouTube and Instagram? Yes. But at the end of the day, it's like, I would tidy up everything and just put them back in their corners. Like, even though if I just used that OP1 or OB4 5 minutes ago, like I would always put it back there because if not my arm would just like hit something, the
Hmm.
tripod would fall, my camera has broken before. So I just realized like it's more conducive for me if I have a reset mode when I'm working alone because there's no one to come in here and be like, oh, that's a trip hazard, you're gonna die and no one's gonna find you for days. It's like, do you know what I mean? Because I have a vintage um ketone, like an ace tone that my dad gave to me. He wanted me to fix it, but whatever. So I was holding it the other day, right? And I just went backwards for a split second.
Hmm.
And my partners won't be at my studio. He comes around the weekend, and I just realized, like, wow, can you imagine in a pandemic if I went backwards and it just went on my head. And it's like that, I don't know, like that morbid humor side of me was laughing while I was falling. And I was
Yeah.
like, someone found me. Like she just died doing what she loved.
At least she died doing what she loved.
I know I tripped over the grandmother while holding the ace tone and both were so heavy. And for a split second, I was just like, which one do I want to save? If I go forward, then this goes smashing down. And if I go backwards, both are going to smash on the Moog. And for a split second, I was just like, core strength. Just went to the middle. I put that thing down and I just went, we need a better system. Can't be dying here. And no one's going to look for you until the weekend.
Right. No, it's smart. Safety first.
How about you? I think you're very organized though, Brian. I can actually see like you have a shelf and everything is
I try
displayed.
to stay somewhat organized. Yeah, this is like a little shelf. I built that, which not that I'm a good builder, but that's
Wow,
one
you
thing.
built that?
It's very simple, but it does have like rack mount spaces. I don't have anything in them, but it's available if one day I do. I try to keep everything sort of handy and neat, as neat as possible. Like, I don't really have wires in the middle of the floor. It's all kind of it's an ugly mess behind everything. But I try to keep it where things are accessible and like you said, I don't want to spend a lot of time setting things up. This camera is here; it's always there. It's not a thing I have to think about because if I have to think about it, it's another step that might trip me up and I might not get to work. Like getting to start doing work is the hardest part for me usually. All of a sudden the dishes need to be done. Oh, well, maybe I should scrub the floor. Everything becomes real important besides doing the work.
Ah,
So if I have to take things out, move them around too much, clean it up, the likelihood of me not doing it goes way up.
that's the kind of topic that sometimes we talk in the community as well. Like the line between like, the procrastination and then the rest mode, right? Because sometimes like I'm genuinely tired and then I will rest. But then sometimes at the beginning stages, I couldn't recognize when it's too much rest, that it becomes like it's now hard to get out of that comfy state of I've learned to rest now. It's very stressful for me to rest. I feel very guilty resting. And then suddenly I'll get this aching feeling that like the transition between I've just rested to make sure it's not procrastination. Some people also don't realize like that gray area can suck you in and make you feel really down. Like you would sit on the table and you can't tell if I'm fully rested mentally or now I'm procrastinating. Sometimes I tell them like it's the in between. And just being in that situation more often teaches me when I'm actually now I'm dragging my feet. I think I only know when I'm dragging my feet when I start making another video and I actually feel like, hey, I have a lot of energy to make that video. I just lost that momentum, that feeling of connectivity that I'm close to my music sometimes. I think that's why we feel very guilty about resting. We're afraid like we get too comfortable in the rest mode and it's a psychological thing. I remember like I have this place in the house where like there's this sofa and then there's this blanket and I just be like, ugh, this blanket can't be here because the minute I pull this blanket close, I'm gonna be here for the whole weekend. Like I just like, but at the same time, yeah, like artists and creative people will always struggle with that rest procrastination. What is rest? Am I procrastinating or am I resting? Is this necessary or am I being too easy on myself? And I think the answer is always just always work on the balance and know that there isn't like some days you just can't feel guilty and some days you just got to kick your butt and be like, I don't like this, but 30 minutes in, I'm going to start feeling better.
Yeah.
I think these honest conversations help too, because I'm sure someone's just like watching a video, which is like me. I'm always listening to a podcast. And when like an entrepreneur just says, yeah, those feelings are normal and this is how to combat it by like testing it a little bit, then I just go, good news. I'm going to try that. I want to try your advice with the haunted house as well, Brian. The next time I go into the Walking Dead one, I totally avoided that one on purpose at Universal Studios. The Walking Dead, because I love the movie. I love the TV series so much. Like I'm obsessed with The Walking Dead, especially at like the first few seasons. That when I saw that entrance at Universal Studios, I was telling my partner like, I don't know, man. Like I don't want to just start not liking the show if I get too scared, you know? Like, because we're watching in the comfort of our house when I'm watching Walking Dead, but when I'm about to walk into that door where there are like humans dressed as zombies ready to like make me shit myself, like I don't know, I don't feel comfortable. But after your advice, Brian, you might see me on Insta story screaming my head off one day when this pandemic's cleared and I can go. I'm like, I'm so scared and I love it.
That's good. Grab onto your partner and then enjoy the ride.
Have you done any since? Like, not obviously not since the pandemic, but since you kind of loved
Yeah,
haunted houses.
I believe so. Yeah, and that was and I enjoyed the entire evening more because I honestly I was going into that just trying to be a good sport, and I guess really I
Okay.
wasn't being a good sport because I was going all numb. But I was it wasn't the thing I wanted to do with the night, but. All right, this is something you and your friends like to do, so I'll go along and you know, I'll be good about it. But
I'm deeply fascinated by your partner loving the thrill of a haunted house. Like, because for me, I think that would be something that like I need to psych myself up to get into.
you
Because
do. Well, it's like a lot of things, I think, really. I mean, I don't know, even like jumping in the water, there's always that moment of like, I don't know if I should do it. And then you just got to do it. But it's a thrill and it's a safe thrill, it's scary, but it's not real. It's not, there's that, it's like a roller coaster where, you're not really zooming around in peril,
yeah,
but
like
you get the safe emotional, you know, high or whatever it is without the actual real life danger. So I
oh
think
my gosh, I take it as a real life danger. So, like, I believe it. I believe 1000% that it could literally scare me to death. Like when I look at a haunted house experience, I'm just like, whoa, that would scare me to death. Like my heart would just stop working. Like it because it's set up to kind of already make you feel like your senses are. I don't know if you know, I watched this video about like we have this fear sensors at the back of our heads. I think it's located somewhere. Don't quote me on this, people, but somewhere there. And the more you train it to be heightened to fear, the more stronger it gets, right? And mine's just like super buffed up. Like so, I think when I go into a haunted house, my thing is already like you're gonna die. Like it's not going to be good. And I know some people like my partner, like it's not very strong. So for him, it's like he's not easily scared of like any situation. Like he could just walk into a haunted house where he'd just be like, Shh, that shit's not real. Just calm down. And I'm there like, I make things scarier for me. I think it
well,
comes with being
be
creative. Yeah.
careful. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, I know. Brian, you'll be the reason why I'm
I
like,
don't want
we're
to be
doing
responsible for
Brian.
this.
Right before I go into the place, I'm like, for you, Brian.
No,
And then
it's for you.
and you're like, no, no.
I will not be held responsible for this.
Yeah, I'm going in on my own accord.
Yes, at your own risk.
Flavor.
Think of that story as a metaphor. Well, listen, it was really fun talking to you. Thanks so much for what you're doing, for being such a good part of the community and sharing great work. I'm really enjoying the music. We'll send everyone to heymun.com, and from there they can go to whether they prefer Instagram or YouTube or I guess even TikTok.
Oh my gosh, TikTok. Have you tried?
I signed up and I realized it would probably cost me a lot of my free time. So I got out of that before I could get sucked in. I saw where it was going to go. It was going to be a lot of my time I don't even
Oh,
think you have to
so you're
scroll.
really into it then? You're saying
No, no,
that
no, no,
TikTok
no,
is your
no.
vibe?
I saw it as a potentially huge distraction. Like, there's already enough things, vying for my attention. And I don't even think you have to scroll on TikTok, right? It just goes to the next one. Like, you can just sit back and yeah, it was a rabbit hole that I decided not to jump in.
Yeah, I feel you because I feel like Facebook's algorithms and how it's changing in the feed, it's already like suggesting me video after video after video. And I'm noticing like, why am I getting TikTok vibes just watching one video on Facebook? It just wouldn't stop. Like it would just, and it keeps suggesting things that you genuinely want to see. If you watch
Oh
one
yeah.
video for more than 10 seconds, it's like, huh, I'm going to line up the next one that you're going to like too. I felt the TikTok vibes. I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna get stuck laughing at these beautiful videos and funny humor all
You have
day.
to be careful because they know what you like, and they give it right to you. Their job is to keep you on the platform as long as possible. So it, yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad we spoke about mental health then. I hope people, I hope people get this thing there. Like, it's okay to, you know, put your mental health first. And if it means even, kind of like not getting so much on the thing. I was just telling my partner the other day, like, because he was just asking me like because he loves listening to podcasts and like when I'm on it he's just like, oh, I kind of hear a different side of you when you talk about music, because obviously these are not the things that I deep dive with him to the point where like you're a musician, I'm a musician, like we're able to kind of vibe off each other. But for him, like he's in logistics and he doesn't know like all these things that like musicians struggle with, or how depleted we can be after a project. I don't know if you felt it, but have you ever delivered a project and you just felt like for the next couple of hours you just can't sit at the desk, like you
I
just can't do
retire.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, I retire. That's it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just kind of want to just like, okay, I need to go take a walk and stuff like that. So I told my partner like I'm so interested in the mental health side of things with music that anytime I get on a podcast and if the conversation ever flows that way, like I would bare my soul in a sense, because that's where I think the work, when you do the work there, then everyone else can take care of the work that they need to take care of, because we can't actually put an instrument in someone's hands and be like, do this, do it like this, or help them be more productive. But I think if we can actually talk about things that can help them break all the barriers that cause them to kind of feel like they're not being as productive, or they're feeling like there's a lot of like blind spots in their heads that they cannot figure out, that sometimes musicians sitting down together and just having conversations about mental health. Yeah, I've always been very curious, like if more like especially big platforms, right, would talk about things like that and allow kind of like people to just jump in and, for example, like imagining a really huge content creator inviting bigger content creators who's done years and years of YouTubing. Can you imagine? They've lived through like the highs and the lows, the evolution of YouTube, the algorithms, the millions of views, and then the thousands of views. Like I'm always curious, like how does that affect them? Because essentially all of us content creators do look up to them in a certain way, like because they've created a huge following, a solid foundation. They're able to provide for themselves through their art. But at what cost of the mental health? We want to know, like, and how it can kind of like help other people who want to kind of have that kind of lifestyle, like being a content creator. You know what I mean? So I think your podcast kind of helped me see a lot into that. Like I really enjoyed like you talking to True Cuckoo, that was a really good.
Yeah, it all comes with. There's a price to everything, and it's good to be clear on it. You just like making music, like part of the price of that is like it's going to drive you a little crazy. It's hard, it's challenging, and there's a lot of rejection to it or a lot of anonymity, and like you don't always strike gold. That's just it. But that makes it fun when you do. It's good to understand like that all of this, everything I guess in life really has like the other side. There's there's a price for everything. So
I think even for you, like for example, I've seen like because that True Cuckoo episode was it 2 years ago? The one where you spoke to
uh,
True Cuckoo,
probably probably a good 2 years ago, yeah.
and I feel like the great thing about podcasts and what you're doing is like you're catching people at different points of their lives as well, and it's just
Mm.
like a time capsule. Like I am in this state now, and I was in a very different state 4 months ago. And you're probably going through different states of your music journey and your emotions, and you're catching people at different times. Plus, your episodes, do they come out every week? Because I've been seeing, like, since you emailed me, I was just like, whoa, I think 2 episodes came out the surgeon one. And another one came out yesterday or today.
Yeah, yesterday I think it was. I don't know anymore.
I was like, how do you,
It's about one a
how do
week.
you,
I try to
how
do
do
about
you
one a
do
week.
Wow, I mean, I really
Well,
admire.
to tell you the truth, there I don't do a lot of editing. You know, just little. There's little things I'll take out here and there. Usually, when something happens and there's a pause in the conversation. But it's not a terrible amount of work after you know you record it, and it's probably another couple hours, 2 hours, 3 hours of work generally. And some of that's
Um,
just waiting for it to upload, you know. So it's not too bad. It's definitely a slice of time, but compared to a lot of other things, you know, it goes pretty quick. And,
cool.
and it's kind of its own reward, you know. Even if this didn't get published, it's still nice to have these conversations.
I
So
really enjoy talking to people who do podcasts. I realized like I'm quite fascinated with I think all the work that goes into like scheduling and then reaching out and then like making sure that people have the time and coordinating. Like my math is so bad that like I have to tell you like, hey, your time 7:30 my time because I just so I'm just trying to like I don't know if you got the vibe on the email, but like, please fact check me if I'm wrong with the time zones. And I use the calculator to calculate. And I still ask my partner, like, man, I'm so insecure with my calculations. Even before I slept last night, I was like 14 hours behind. If I sleep right now and I do end up waking up at this time, is it today? Yeah, it's today.
yeah, we got it right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Definitely go to heymun.com, check it all out, listen to some good music, and learn some new tricks. Have a great day.